South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, you know, I watched Chuck Schumer today, and it was good to finally hear him speak out. He spoke out powerfully against anti-Semitism. I'm sure a lot of it directed at his own party. Where was he when Congresswoman Tlaib was saying, you know, to wipe Israel off the map from the river to the sea? And why did Chuck Schumer, there was a standalone aid bill for Israel on the Senate floor yesterday, and he, I'm told, was leading the effort to stop that aid bill. Is that correct, sir?
That's exactly right. So Senator Schumer made an eloquent presentation about the rise of anti-Semitism, and he's right about that. So what happened here is 30 9/11s for Israel occurred on October the 7th. 1,200 Jews were slaughtered in their homes, the biggest killing of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And you have in Oakland, California, people praising Hamas. The Democratic Party supports the Palestinians over the Israelis for the first time in polling last year. So this effort by my Democratic colleagues to put restrictions on money going to Israel to defend themselves is sick and absurd. This call for a ceasefire is nuts. What would we have said to a group that asked us to have a ceasefire after 9/11? We'd told them to go to hell. So here's what I say to my Democratic colleagues. Support Israel without conditions. Allow them to destroy Hamas before it's too late for the Jewish state. Stand with Israel, reject Hamas, tell all these crazy people to shut up. The bottom line here is the Republican Party is with Israel. The Democratic Party is very confused.
Well, I mean, I really don't understand why Washington works this way. I understand. Well, okay, fair answer. But, you know, I know what Chuck wants to do here. He wants to tie funding for Israel to funding for Ukraine, for funding with Taiwan, and maybe he'll give some money to the border. The House is not going to go along with that, period, end of sentence. I don't see that happening. Israel has not gotten any aid money. Ukraine has gotten nearly $80 billion of money. We're paying more than Europe is paying. It's their continent that is at war. And I think that's been unfair on their part. My question is, why can't we vote on every bill as a standalone on the merits, up or down? And why are these games always played? If he's so concerned about Israel, he had an opportunity to help them yesterday, and he passed on that opportunity.
Yeah, so we need to bring up an Israel standalone bill and support Israel and be done with it. But I'm not going to give money to foreign countries until we secure our own border. 10 Democratic senators wrote a letter opposing efforts to provide border security, opposing policy changes that would secure our border. Governor Abbott, if you're watching Sean Hannity tonight, do me a favor. Make it real to those 10 senators in their states, what you've been dealing with in Texas. Instead of sending them all to New York, why don't you look at the states in question, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Oregon. Governor Abbott, make it real to these 10 senators what it's like to live with a broken border. Send thousands of illegal immigrants to make it real to the politicians who oppose border security. The Democratic position is remain in Texas. They're okay with Texas being overrun. Governor Abbott, send busloads of illegal immigrants to these senators so they will understand what it's like to live with a broken border.
Let me ask you, Senator, we hear this virulent anti-Semitism in the halls of Congress. We see it on, you know, college universities, prestigious universities, a lot of them. We see it in the streets of our cities. We are seeing it worldwide, all across Europe. We're seeing it even in Australia. Gas the Jews, F the Jews. Did you ever think in our lifetime that we'd ever hear those words in light of the history of what happened in Nazi Germany? Because that sounds like the 1930s to me. And I've never used that analogy very often. I thought it was often misused and overused. I don't think so in this case, based on the knowledge we have of the acts they committed that are on videotape, frankly, that I would like to air, except I'm sure it would be too harmful for the families unless we pixel out their faces.
Well, I'm going to call people at Fox tomorrow and beg them to put on the air some of the videos so you can see for yourself what happened to the Jewish people. You can see that on October the 7th, 2023, 80 years after the Warsaw Uprising in Poland, Hamas wants to kill all the Jews for religious reasons. The Nazis wanted to kill all the Jews because of racial reasons. I never thought I would live to see a Holocaust survivor who survived the Nazi terror to be killed by Hamas in Israel. We live in dangerous and sick times. I am begging Fox to air the footage so the American people can see what Israel is facing. No conditions on Israel aid. To my friends in Israel, do what you need to do as long as it takes to defend your country. To the Palestinian people, turn on Hamas. Kick them out.
Lindsay, you know Israel well. You've been over there many times. I've been there many times. I've been in the terror tunnels. I know you've been in the terror tunnels.
Yes.
I've been near the Iron Dome. I've seen it work. I've been to border towns like Sderot. 10,000 missile rockets they got hit with in a 10-year period of time. Kids can't play outside. They play in underground bunker playgrounds. And I'm thinking, for victory to me is this: if once and for all, Gaza can no longer be a launching pad for rockets into Israel. But that also includes in the north. Lebanon could no longer be a launching pad either if they want to have real security and peace in the region and security for Israel. But I'll say this: nobody seems to ever want to talk about the #1 state sponsor of terror, and that is Iran. That we now know they trained Hamas for this. They supplied them with weaponry for this. They are fighting another proxy war, one of many in the region. They have been fomenting terror and getting away with it for a long period of time. I would say it might be time for the world to realize in the entire region that maybe those refineries that Joe has allowed them to use more than Donald Trump did, maybe those refineries need to go. Maybe those nuclear facilities, maybe they need to go before they get nuclear weapons.
Well, so we've been on your show a lot talking about this. How do you protect American troops in Syria and Iraq? You attack Iran when we're attacked in Syria and Iraq by Iranian proxies. This Biden administration is incredibly weak. Nobody respects them. Nobody's afraid of them. Let me tell our friends in Egypt and the United Arab Emirates, if you go into BRICS and join an organization made up of Iran, Russia, and China, you're going to make an enemy of me. Let me tell my friends in Saudi Arabia, I want you to normalize with Israel. I'd like to have a strategic relationship with you. But if you join BRICS, an organization basically controlled by Russia, China, and Iran, you will be an enemy of the United States. Biden has lost all respect and all fear. To the Iranians, if you kill one American in Syria and Iraq, and I know you're trying to through your proxies, I will do everything I can to make sure you're hit in return. To the Republican Party, let's stand up for Israel without equivocation. Let's put pressure on the Biden administration to protect our troops. President Biden does not have the backs of those serving in Syria and Iraq. Mr. President, President Biden, you need to let the Iranians know if you keep trying to kill Americans, we're coming after you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Women, to their children, to their grandmothers and grandfathers. So here we are, and Andrea, Israel finds itself in a position where it has to root out Hamas. It has to destroy the terror organization. They have no other choice. In such a confined space, you know this so much better than any of us. In such a confined space, you cannot live, you know, a wall cannot separate you from a governing body that came over on October 7th and did the savage things they did to Israelis. But help us out here. What does the Biden administration think? What do the Israelis think, Andrea, about the unfolding situation? The longer this pause goes on, the more this terrorist organization regroups and the more hostages that are released. Great news for the Israelis and for all of us seeing these joyous pictures. But also Hamas, as the New York Times reported yesterday, gains more power in the West Bank because they're seen as the great liberators of Palestinian hostages. It seems everywhere Israel turns, they face a more difficult choice. So what's the next step here?
It's so difficult. It's obviously the most complicated foreign policy issue that any of our leaders, that any of us have ever faced as analysts. Basically, the administration is now beginning to pivot slightly. There are those in the administration who really are trying to persuade the one decider, the President of the United States, that the bear hug was important at the beginning, but that it can't be continuing given the civilian casualties. And even if the Hamas numbers of 15,000 civilian dead are exaggerated, you're still talking about thousands and thousands of people, the devastation, which tactically is losing a lot of force for Israel. And the argument is now publicly as well as privately. The bunker busters that they initially used on the refugee camp, for instance, that they can't go in hard and heavy in the south where 80% of the population has been at their own direction moved from the north into so-called safe zones because there's just no way to do it. They have to use more ground forces, which will increase, of course, the casualty rate of the IDF. So there are trade-offs
they are preparing
case.
for right now.
And they're trying to persuade Israel to do a better job of controlling what they view, what the administration views itself as the extremist settlers. This was spoken at the United Nations Security Council yesterday by our UN ambassador in a very balanced approach, but she said that they have to do something to prevent a real uprising on the West Bank, because that will be two fronts now. What we have is Secretary of State Blinken on his third trip there in Israel, you know, waking up today and also going to Ramallah to see the Palestinians. So they're trying to balance that. And most importantly, Bill Burns, still in Qatar, trying to negotiate a longer ceasefire. They do think that they have controlled, to the best extent that they can, with the help of U.S. intelligence now, the overflights, the Reaper drones, that they're doing a better job. They can't get to the tunnels, but they're doing a better job of at least getting intelligence on Hamas rebuild.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
Hey, what's poppin', my friends, my family? We are back once again with another banger. You know what we do, banger after banger after banger. I hope you guys enjoyed yesterday. Yesterday was fun, man. Greenwald brought it. And I don't know, man. I might be giving myself too much credit here, but it's something about RBN, because people know this is like a revolutionary safe space. Like when they come on RBN, they're like, all right, we can bring it here. Like we don't have to fucking go. I heard Scott Ritter a lot of times, man. Scott Ritter brought it, man.
Yesterday, I've never seen a clip of Scott Ritter the way he behaved yesterday, but I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, and we're open with talking to people who are not like 100% agreement with us on politics. Like Scott's not like, he's not like a socialist or anything. Mm-hmm. But boy, he was speaking pre-revolutionary, wasn't he? He was talking about like dismantling the military. I was like, what?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was like, what is happening here? But it's good to see that. But it's nice, Nick. I mean, if it's true, if we do contribute to inspiring such a radical sort of spirit, that's a compliment, and I hope to If we're not doing that now, we hope to do that. Like that is a goal.
I'm not saying it to give us too much
radicalism.
credit, and I'm explaining why. I'm not saying it to give us too much credit, but you know how, like, so if someone go on Fox News, right? Generally,
Right.
they are more. they and it's not us, but
They
generally
that
people are
audience,
more
yeah.
like accommodating to their audience. If someone go on like the Young Turks or MSNBC, they may stay true to their politics, but they're a little bit more accommodating to their politics. So when people go on RBN, knowing that our fucking title is revolutionary, they start speaking more fucking revolutionary because they know
that was great.
Anyway, and maybe that may be my ego speaking, but that's just my theory. Because both Scott and Glenn brought it. But CJ, I'll pass you to bring our guest. I have a lot of thoughts, but I save it for our guests because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So when people call us the Jimmy Dore left, Jimmy Doreites, this is something you always bring up. Is like, why do they do that? If it's based off who we associate with, or who, at least if as a podcast, who we bring on, wouldn't that mean we're Margaret Kimberley adjacent? Because she's literally the person we've had on, but yeah, and Najamo too. But Margaret is literally the guest we've had on the network the most out of any guest. So if we're adjacent to anyone, it would be Margaret Kimberley, and that's something I would take any day of the week and twice on Sunday. So let's bring in a guest and a friend. This is Margaret Kimberley. How are you doing? Oops, Margaret.
Yeah. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
It's good to see you.
Good. It's nice. Always good to be back.
Yes, and I know you saw the clip that we started with, and the reason I picked that clip, we always check Morning Joe, because we say here on RBN that Morning Joe is really the mouthpiece of the ruling class, in most instances talking directly to the ruling class or people in that community, like donors. Mm-hmm. So when they bring Andrea Mitchell to Morning Joe, that means this is high level discussions. We need to do some high level propaganda. But what I found is so interesting, Margaret and Nick, how tough it is for them to talk about Israel now, knowing all the protests, knowing that we know that this is a genocide and people are discussing this as a genocide. And you can almost feel that they know it's a genocide, but they're still sort of tippy-toeing around it. But what say you about the coverage, just broadly speaking? Let's start there, broadly speaking. What say you about sort of the corporate news coverage, the New York Times sort of coverage of what's happening in Israel, and what's your take on it?
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be back again. My take is that they can't hide anymore. These demonstrations across the country, around the world, have changed forever the way people in this country understand Israel and understand the U.S. relationship with Israel. We know that Israel gets more foreign aid than any other country. We know that the Israel lobby, AIPAC, and other organizations have this grip on American politics. We have known that. But to see these war crimes, and by the way, terms like war crimes are defined. It's not just hyperbole. It's not just my 2 cents or anybody else's 2 cents. Can you see me? I feel like I'm freezing. I'm looking.
It a little bit laggy, but I can still hear you pretty well. So
okay,
yeah, so, like very minimal.
All right, cool. Yes. All right. So terms like war crimes are defined in the Geneva Conventions. Terms like genocide are defined by the United Nations. So this isn't hyperbole. It isn't just anybody's 2 cents. We know that that's what's happening in Israel. Israel is committing war crimes on our dime, controlling our political process, determining who we can and can't vote for. 2 people have come forward in Michigan, for example, and said that they were offered $20 million in campaign funds to challenge Rashida Tlaib in a primary. And that people know that now. So it's a little more difficult to say, oh, poor Israel. It's a little more difficult not so difficult that they don't try to present the administration's view and present basically war propaganda. That's all Morning Joe is. but people know too much now. People have stopped tiptoeing around, stopped saying, well, Jewish people might be mad and I have to think about their feelings. People are saying, what about my feelings about war crimes being committed on my dime, about people not representing me, representing the military industrial complex or another country, or representing imperialism instead of what I want. So fortunately, it is a little more difficult for them to say what they've always said. Excuse me. And it's a beautiful thing to see people taking it to town halls, to interrupting their members of Congress or Senate and telling them what they feel. So these propagandists have had to change a little bit. They have they've had to change the story, just not enough, but because they're still talking about why we've got to give Israel money and stand with Israel no matter what, and Hamas are a bunch of Nazis and so on and so forth. But things have changed, and for the better. They have to keep up this. You know, well, they don't want to say ceasefire. They say humanitarian pause. It was supposed to be for a certain number of days, and they've had to extend it because people won't stand for it anymore. It's too hard for them to do it. So yeah, there have been some changes, but not enough. Keep up the pressure. You know, people are not afraid anymore of being called. You know, if you call everybody an anti-Semite, then what does it mean? You know, somebody once said that an anti-Semite, and I would credit the person if I remembered who said this, an anti-Semite used to be someone who didn't like Jews. Now it's someone that Jews don't like. And so it has power. If you question something, then you're called an anti-Semite. Well, then, you know, it's not so scary, but the other point is that's why they have to resort to this brute force, the doxing, the firing people, the keeping people from getting their jobs, the censorship, because of this popular opposition.
Yeah, that's the weaponization of capital that you can expect through capitalist models. That's how you don't really have mechanisms to resist imperialism in the ruling class under the capitalist system, where your livelihood is so dependent on capital, fam. So there's so many people in the professional managerial class who want to stand for Palestine, but they can't because they can't lose their comfy job. And now, I'm gonna humanize these people. I explained this before. Imagine that you worked your entire life, you went through school, you're all just doing debt, you got 3 kids you're taking care of. We will want people to make a sacrifice for Palestinians, but how many people realistically gonna do that? That's why, as revolutionaries, we got to understand that there will always be limits to what we can expect the professional managerial class to engage in anti-colonial activism. They may do like social warrior, social justice issues, but they're never gonna do anything that will threaten their capital, which is why Zionism and imperialism is such a threat to the working class, because they can always weaponize their capital against anyone that fight their agenda. But what did you want to try to, Margaret? I think you did. Anything you want to try to say real quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that's why it's important for us, those of us who can speak up, to speak up on behalf of people who just say, I want a ceasefire. Then they're called pro-Palestinian. Maybe they are, but maybe they aren't. Maybe they just want a ceasefire. Maybe they don't want their tax dollars to be used to bomb hospitals. But so, of course, these people are being attacked for saying the most mild statements. But that's how we have to be revolutionary and point that out and defend them. I was so happy to see, I can't remember that horrible man who was harassing the food vendor, Seldowitz. Is that his last name?
Oh, yeah.
Who had, and it tells you who's in charge of foreign policy.
Yes.
That horrible people. They are racist. They are true believers in U.S. power. He harassed the street vendor. He also harassed the Russian UN consulate. He harassed, that was not in the press, he's on video, harassing them, calling women whores. They also asked for help from the police. And we're told, well, it's free speech. There's nothing we can do to help you. I was so happy to see him on a perp walk. even if he walks away with a fine or a slap on the wrist. I think it was so beautiful that he didn't get away with it. But there are many people like him, and they are powerful people. So we're up against a lot. So if we're going to call ourselves revolutionary, this is the moment to really stand up and be true to that word.
I noticed that a lot of liberals and Democrats had a hard time reporting on that story because he was an Obama official.
Yes.
Liberal, fam. So what did I tell you guys? Many people think I being defamatory. Like, people think I say stuff for clicks all the time. It's an accusation I get hit with all the time. Because I would say stuff like, I encounter more racism from a white liberal than I have a white conservative redneck. And that's true. I live in Missouri, and that's just my own personal experience. And now you guys see this unhinged Obama official, the racist liberal that you guys think have the moral high ground over a Trump supporter, exposed. So they've been having a hard time reporting on this story because of this fact. And I'm glad you brought this up, because this is a point that post-duopolists have to continue to make. There's no more high ground between Democrats and Republicans. They all have morally reprehensible people, like that State Department official that was caught being an unhinged racist, harassing people. One thing I will go back. Go ahead.
You also have to remember, Biden's just continuing U.S. foreign policy. He's not the first one. Now because he's Biden and he's not as slick and as smooth as Obama, he runs over to Israel, which he should not have done, and openly basically tells Netanyahu, you do whatever you want to do.
Yes.
Because they're on the same page, by the way. And he couldn't get away with the things Obama got away with. But this is just a continuation of decades of foreign policy. You just have a president who's not savvy enough to hide that fact. But that's actually a good thing, because people see how horrible U.S. foreign policy really is.
Now, and Glenn said this when he was on the show yesterday, one of the worst things that Biden did was repeat the unhinged Zionist lie that you can't trust the Hamas death count, the death counts coming out of the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry. Shameful genocide denial. But something that a lot of people forget is just the fact that he repeats the lie that Israel's at war with Hamas. And there's people who just take that at face value. I want to show you guys this. And we explained this yesterday. When you have a civilian death rate, and this is taking Israel's bullshit numbers at face value, which I do not believe at 1 second when it comes to the amount of Hamas soldiers they killed. But if you do believe them, you understand their civilian death rate is around 95%, right? 95 to 99%. They only killed around 2% of Hamas fighters based on their numbers when you have thousands of children dead. So with this fact, you cannot credibly say that Israel is at war with Hamas.
No. Their goal is to create terror. Their goals are terrorist goals. Why would you attack a hospital? That's psychological warfare. It's to kill as many people as possible, to deliberately, intentionally, consciously kill the most vulnerable people, to chase people out, to depopulate Gaza. That is their goal. And that's fine with the US. They just have a PR problem now because of all the protests. That's their goal, is to destroy this place, to depopulate it. But the Palestinian people are resisting just by living in their I can't imagine living in a bombed out house. But there are people who've done that. They have. And the other thing, you mentioned him saying that we can't believe the Hamas death count. The most disgraceful thing to me was after Israel bombed that hospital, and they did, to say, well, it wasn't your team. We know it wasn't them. The UN has people who determine who do these things. They could have said, we don't know. But Hamas bombed their own hospital, or a rocket misfired. It was really Hamas who killed other Palestinians at their tunnels under the hospital. Israel has kidnapped the director of that hospital.
Yes.
The man is in jail because they don't want him to talk. They don't want him to reveal the lies that, I mean, and their propaganda is so sloppy that they said they were keeping guns in the MRI room. Nobody keeps metal in an MRI room. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. But that also tells you what kind of control they have. Their propaganda doesn't have to be very good, because if the corporate media just repeat what the White House says, they can, with many people, they can get away with telling really stupid lies about a hospital or about anything. And I want to mention one thing, because this really touched me, that they ordered doctors and nurses out of a hospital. There were premature babies, too frail to be moved, and they were told the Red Cross would evacuate them. These 5 babies died. They starved to death, and their parents came back, their kids were dead, and their bodies were decomposing. That's what people cannot abide anymore. The outrage, the revulsion, there is no turning back. There will never again, I don't believe, be silence and acquiescence from the public about what Israel does. And that's why the House passed a resolution equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
Disgusting.
That's to try to shut people up. But you can't unsee it. You can't unhear it. And they've all been exposed, and that is a great thing.
Yes, I have one more thing I want to ask Margaret here, and I'll pass it to you, CJ, because this is what I was mentioning earlier. Why I hold anyone in contempt who even repeats the Israeli propaganda that Israel is at war with Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
I read the caption. You guys saw the video play in the background. It was subtitled, so you guys could read it as well. The Israeli forces have destroyed houses and surrounded hospitals this week, but not in Gaza. This is what's happening in Jenin, in occupied West Bank. How can you say Israel's at war with Hamas when they're attacking and supporting settler attacking people in the West Bank? When they're
Let me tell you how bad that is. The UN ambassador, Linda Thomas Greenfield, truly horrible person, like all of them. She posted something about the settlers need to stop attacking Palestinians. How bad is it that the administration has to publicly acknowledge these Israeli settlers are lynch mobs? That is, they are killing people. They are driving people out of their homes. There is no other way to describe them. And there's no Hamas on the West Bank. This is an all-out war against all the Palestinian people. And it's something, yes, U.S. could sanction Israeli settlers. I mean, they're not going to do it.
They won't. And the reason I put this up, because they won't do it, but it was so bad they have to at least say something about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But sorry, when you continue, go ahead.
No, I had my say, but it's harder for them to cover up. And I don't know if you noticed yesterday, it was hilarious to me. Chuck Schumer, Senator Charles Schumer, my senator, the Senate majority leader.
Oh, Lord.
Speech about anti-Semitism and Jews are fearful. And this is why they're fearful. And the responses to him on Twitter were epic. He was wasted completely. There were a few people saying thank you, but everybody else was like, really, really, Chuck? You can just STFU, because it doesn't work anymore to try to say he had relatives who died in the Holocaust. Listen, nobody's in favor of that. You don't have to, and that's the other thing. It's like, I've heard of the Holocaust. Thank you very much. I know quite well what happened at Babi Yar in Ukraine. I already know, but it doesn't work for you to try to use that to shut me up. And that is, and that's what they've been doing. It's a way to shut you up. It's a way to keep getting their way. And I don't even believe that people like him sincerely believe what they say. They're just trying to crush the opposition, to shut people up, to turn back the clock, and get people to tiptoe around his. Listen, I have feelings. I have feelings about a government that wouldn't exist without U.S. public money having babies starve to death in a hospital. Those are
And-
my feelings. Everybody's talking about their feelings now.
Yeah,
You
and
put a genie back in the bottle, it's over.
there's a reason why I told you guys I would not be a good public official. I'm not someone who should not be the spokesperson for any cause, because my temperament and my feelings of it, if anyone bring up the Holocaust to justify this shit, I would tell them to go fuck themselves to their face. Don't ever use that tragedy to justify why you should genocide another group of people who you guys are illegally occupying. I will look at these people as they talking about how their family died in Holocaust. I would tell you, go fuck yourself. Imagine if I use the fact that I'm a descendant of slaves to justify black violence on any other population, how you guys would react.
Yes, how would you react if you said, if you were, I mean, does that apply to anybody else? If a group of people are oppressed, to say, well, you know, we were oppressed, so now we get to oppress. Does that work for anybody else? Is that rule just for one group, or does that work for everybody? It never works for Black people. We're always told to get over it. We're being overly sensitive. Why are we living in the past? Blah, blah, blah. So we know what the answer would be if you or I or any other Black person tried to say that.
And on that point, and this is the last thing I want to bring up before I pass back to CJ. On that point, there's a guy that everyone is finally turning on. It took them years too late. And the reason why this is a perfect transition, believe it or not, because when you read this article, I got a free article, New York Times, so I made sure I read this.
It's your one free one, huh?
Yeah, see, look, enjoy, look at this. I got the free article here.
Enjoy it, sucker. That's what they say, Nick. It says, enjoy it, sucker. Say that.
Israel's war against Hamas, Sanders faced a backlash from the left. The New York Times is talking about it now. The progressive disappointment with the Vermont senator, a liberal icon, reflects a broader divide among Democrats over this war. Now, I want to get your thoughts on Bernie in general, Margaret, but on the point we were just talking about, if you read, I read the entire article. So there's a point here. I wonder if I can find it quickly, where you have progressive apologists for Bernie who was interviewed in the New York Times article as well. Well, they were like people like Fahad Fakir, a lot of these progressive people, professional managerial class people who were trying to like explain why Bernie's doing it. They would say, yeah, we don't like that Bernie's doing this, but he's doing it because of this. And Bernie is part of the scumbag that we was talking about, because you know what they mentioned? They said that October 7th particularly shook Bernie. I can't find it right now, but I can find the passage in the article here soon. I might clip it on my Twitter while I have this up. They said the events of October 7th shook Bernie Sanders to his core because he had family members who died in the Holocaust. So because he had family members who died in the Holocaust, October 7th reminded him of that. So now he wanted to genocide the Palestinians. As disgusting as it gets, right? He's weaponizing the fact that his father's side of his family died in the Holocaust to justify why he don't want a ceasefire and is okay with thousands of children dying. But sorry, I went off a little bit. Go ahead, Margaret.
Well, let's not forget a couple of things. He lived on a kibbutz in the early 60s.
Yeah, they mentioned that as well.
Yes, so let's not forget that. And if you remember from his campaign, what he said that was allegedly supportive of Palestine was so mild. It was like Palestinians deserve respect or something like that. And usually politicians, if anybody running for president ignores Palestinians, so people are like, oh, he said Palestinians deserve respect. And I was like, what the hell is that? That's nothing. But we see the real Bernie, a company guy who likes Joe Biden, who provides cover for Joe Biden in every other way. Biden can break a railroad strike. He goes along with it. All these things that Mr. Progressive is supposed to be against, he ends up going along with. And in this, he said everything except should be a ceasefire. I'm sorry about the civilian deaths. Israel needs to do better, blah, blah, blah. Everything except what should be said. So Bernie is, he's been dead to me for a while, and all he has done is confirm the rightness of my conclusions about him. This is the time to stand up. And
so this is what you mentioned before. Oh, sorry, Murray. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Sanders, sorry, I can't see you guys when I have this up, who is Jewish and spent time in kibbutz. This is what you just mentioned earlier before. That's what they brought up here. But now this is what I want to mention before, because once again, the people who use this, I find despicable. If you guys think Norman Finkelstein was mean to that crocodile tears person, I find it even more. I find it just as I won't say even more, but just as reprehensible when people do this. Because Faiz Shakir, I believe he was like the campaign manager of Bernie Sanders. I remember
something like that. Something like high level, yeah, something like that.
Actually, I'll read his entire statement for the sake of this segment. I won't, because the whole article is long. They got all these people kind of apologizing for Bernie. A few people who rip into Bernie who say it's disappointing. And remember, these are people with the professional managerial class. Like those are the only people that the New York Times acknowledge as the left. They're not talking about like the grassroots, like the RBNs, not even like the Black Agenda reports, right? But anyway, I'll just read his comments so you guys see what he said. Faiz Shakir, an advisor to Mr. Sanders, who served as his campaign manager, yep, I was right, said the clash between the senator and some of his supporters come from a natural tension between a movement leader and a political leader that has dodged Mr. Sanders throughout his career. The easiest thing for Bernie Sanders to do would to be just to say something to make the activists happy. You guys see how the professional managerial class thing? That is not what Bernie should do. Just say something to make us happy? You guys see their mindset? That was my first thought when I read that. Why would you say that? No, what Bernie needs to do is be on the right side of history, not doing a better job managing our fucking feelings. But anyway, let me continue. And the fact that he's not is indicative of how sincerely he approaches this issue in particular. That's why my opinion on this when I read Faiz Shakir was he was apologizing for Bernie. Like, he was horrible. Like, he tried to sound reasonable, like, y'all, I don't agree with him, but he apologizing for him. Do anyone want to chime in before I finish? I can't see you guys, so anyone want to chime in?
Just saying, this is just this level, like, I love and hate what's happening. I love it because it's exposing so much of this strategy and these ideas from these people. And all the things they told us, like they said, oh, we're down with third parties until Cornel West started running. Oh, we're down with Palestinians until now. It's like, until it happens, always in theory, they're that, until it actually is a concrete thing. But I think Margaret also wanted to chime in before we go back.
Yeah, I just want to say these, people get these positions because they're apologists. That's how you get to be Bernie's campaign manager. That's how you get to have a gig on MSNBC or a podcast or get the support of the Democrats. You get that because you're an apologist, because you're not going to make waves, because you're not going to oppose the narrative. That's why people like that have the positions they have, because they are going to curry favor at every turn. So we should not be surprised that someone who worked on Bernie's campaign is still a little lapdog. We shouldn't be surprised. That's the position they hold. We at the Black Agenda Report, we call them the Black Misleadership class. But apparently there's a lot of misleadership classes. There's a Muslim misleadership class and an Arab misleadership class. And
they have them all.
they got to buy up all these people for their pretend big tent. But as you pointed out that it's not about Bernie's feeling. Bernie's struggling. Oh, he's upset. Or who cares? He's a senator. He's a United States senator. He's in a position to say this. There needs to be a ceasefire, and the U.S. has to change its relationship with Israel. That's his job, not pretend concern.
Look at this mealy-mouthed bullshit here, and the New York Times consider this scathing criticism. Like, and I think Faiz Shakir, the best one to show you guys the sum of what everyone was saying, because this is like what most of the people were saying, and he in particular caught my interest when I read it. Like, dude, this piece of shit. Look at this part. It's an affirmation that Bernie Sanders doesn't come to these things with political positioning in mind. He's actually struggling with the moral dimensions of this.
That's nonsense. He's not struggling with anything. And this is the time to be political. He's a senator. He's not a clergyman. He's not a philosopher. He's a senator. So he's supposed to be political. I don't know why that's seen as some sort of a compliment to say that a senator isn't being political.
And And they is bullshit because he definitely
Professional
is.
management.
But he definitely is
Managers
too. That's
is
the
a
that's the
joke.
thing. Do anyone want to believe that Bernie Sanders don't see the moral problems with killing a record amount of children per day? He does, but he can't stand against AIPAC and Israel. They made a devil's bargain. We explained this on the RBN. Progressives and social democrats made a devil's bargain that they would team up with liberals and neocons on foreign policy under the hopes of getting crumbs on domestic policies. That's Bernie Sanders' politics. So Bernie Sanders is willing to support Zionism, Israel, so he doesn't get destroyed, so he can hopefully give you some domestic shit that which doesn't happen.
That
So
crumbs we don't get. Did we get crumbs?
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't even get. We were supposed to be $2,000, and it was like, well, you already got $600, so you get $1,400. That equals $2,000. And it was, can we raise the minimum wage? No. Can we have Build Back Better? Actually, no. And that's Manchin and Sinema's fault. Somebody else's fault, not Joe Biden's fault. The railroad workers go on strike. What does a progressive do? Well, you help crush the strike, of course. So this idea of compromise is just acquiescing. That's all it is. The word compromise implies that you've made a demand, that you stand for something, that you horse trade. Well, you'll give me this and then I get that. But they just give in and they call it compromise and they call it, moral torment or whatever it is they're trying to say.
That's an important point because
relational harm.
That is a very important point to add to what I was saying, because I want you guys to know that even that their devil's bargain that they make is a failure, because it's not like they support imperialism. We got healthcare, you know what I mean? So
yes.
what they do is a failure on face value too. So it just shows how ridiculous they are. But I'm gonna read this part here, and then CJ, I'll pass to you. You can do the next segment or two, because I want Margaret and I want CJ to even respond to what Bernie's saying. Like, I've been reading his statements, and it's as unhinged as Lindsey Graham, as we were showing you guys earlier. It just, Bernie doesn't say it in, like, the right wing, like, malicious attitude, for the lack of a better term. You know how, like, Republicans say this? They would say Joe Biden's immigration policy, but they would say it in a fucked up way. You know what I mean? Bernie is saying the same thing Lindsey Graham said earlier, but he's saying it in a more calculated, progressive way. Now, listen to this. Hamas had made it absolutely clear before and after October 7th that their goal is the destruction of Israel and the perpetual warfare to achieve that end. Now, he's saying that in opposition of the ceasefire, which is the argument that Lindsey Graham was making. They are in lockstep with this issue. And this is me listening to Rokan and Bernie. They would just say it differently, fam. Like, Lindsey and the right, they would be like completely evil, like Palestinians are garbage. But Bernie would say the same thing they say. We can't have a ceasefire because we can't let Hamas exist. Now, this is the last part I want to read. I'll pass to you, CJ, after Margaret reaction, because this is what prompted me to move this segment up a little bit. This is disgusting. This is when Mr. Shakir said the Hamas attack was personally jarring for Mr. Sanders. But so the year 2022 being one of the most deadliest years in Palestinian history, that's not jarring for you, Bernie? Thousands of kids being bombed is not jarring, Bernie? Now, they say this as it's a moral virtue. This is going to bail us out. No, I view this as reprehensible. Like, it's a backfire.
It's a moral failing.
Yep.
It's absolutely a moral failing. And, so they allegedly quote a Hamas leader who says there's a permanent state of war with Israel. Well, hello, what's wrong with being in a permanent state of war with a country that's practicing genocide? It is international law. You have the right to self-defense. The Palestinian people have a right to self-defense. And so, yes, there is a war. There's war being waged on them. So they have, as a right of self-defense, they have a right. And I want to say something else about what happened on October 7th. The Israelis killed a lot of those people.
Yes.
It's something that has not been. Now, you could say if Hamas had never attacked, it wouldn't have happened. Oh, okay, you can say that. But in their response, Israeli tanks shelled people's homes. They talked about people were burned to death by Israeli tanks. And this is something that we should have all the facts. You can conclude what you want from those facts, but to act as though Hamas deliberately burned people in their homes when it was and they've interviewed some of these young, inexperienced people who were operating these tanks, and they said, well, is it civilians? Their commanders told them, shoot anyway, go ahead and shoot. And that's why a lot of those people are dead. And we are not supposed to know that. The corporate media help. They don't tell us any of that. Give us all the information. Give us all the facts. Let us reach the conclusion you want. You might conclude that you still hate Hamas. All right, somebody might. That's okay. But then you at least know the truth. So when they say they're like Nazis and they kill Jews just because they want to kill Jews, you know that's a lie. You know it isn't true.
All loss of life is saddening. I gotta be careful when I talk about October 7th, not to get us in trouble. But you guys understand when people said Hamas invade Israel on October 7th, that's a lie. That's occupied Palestinian land. You can't invade yourself. So it's very sad when innocent people die, but those are human shields used by Israel because they are unwilling participants. Well, a lot of them are willing participants, but let's say the children and anyone who was a victim, they are human shields, unwilling participants of a settler colonial hot war going on between the colonizer versus the people fighting for their land. I will not accept the premise that Hamas invaded Israel, and that will get me in trouble. I know it will.
Well,
go ahead, Margaret.
Also I'm glad you pointed that out. Under international law, Israel cannot claim a right to self-defense in occupied territory. That's not self-defense. It isn't. It just isn't. And I don't want, and I just want to amplify what you just said. I don't want anybody to die. Nobody has to die.
No.
If the U.S. were an honest broker, nobody would have died on October 7th. Nobody would have died since then. If the U.S. did the right thing, if the U.S. wanted to peacefully coexist with the rest of the world and didn't insist on domination, nobody would be dead. So I consider these previous attacks on Gaza under other presidents, Obama and other presidents, all of it is the fault of the U.S. The U.S. could put a stop to all of it, but doesn't want to because the U.S. and Israel are on the same page. And that's the other thing. I don't want to just demonize Israel. Whatever they do with U.S. permission.
Absolutely. And this is the last part I'll read and I'll pass to you, CJ, because this is why it's so ridiculous. I don't accept the fucking bullshit premise that we got to condemn Hamas. I don't. I'm not pushing that on anyone. I'm just telling you guys what I believe. So, and this is what Bernie believes here. When this is what Fahir Shakir says. As a deeply committed progressive person that Bernie is, he finds it impossible to advocate for trusting a decidedly unprogressive Hamas. You guys see how following the thought process of believing every enemy of the empire leads to war? It goes against peace when you believe Hamas is evil, because if you do truly believe that, then why not follow the train of thought that Bernie has? You can't trust these evil demons. You can't trust Putin, who's an evil demon. You can't trust Nicolas Maduro, who's an evil demon. Like, if you follow that train of thought, that's why I reject it. Because if you follow that train of thought, you will never have peace.
Also, I want to say this about you can't trust Hamas. You can't talk to Hamas. Well, even if that's true, what's happened traditionally in diplomacy is if A can't talk to B, you bring in C. That's what's happened with the prisoner swap. With Qatar has played this role. So if Israel can't talk to Hamas, you talk to somebody else who can talk to Hamas. So it's a lie. It's a lie meant to shut us up. It's a lie meant to continue this awful policy. You demonize someone, and then you say, well, there's no one for us to talk to. And every time Palestinians do try to talk, what do? They're assassinated. They're imprisoned. People have been imprisoned for years. They say, well, there's no Palestinian peacemaker. That's not true. When Palestinians speak up, they're crushed. They destroy people's homes. Collective punishment is a war crime by definition in the Geneva Conventions. Israel will blow up somebody's house. It's like a TV show broadcasted. We blew up his house. We blew up his house. So I think all of this is being exposed. I think if people knew just a little bit about what Israel does, Israel would have no support in the country among the people, would have absolutely none.
With that point, I'll pass to you, CJ. Just on that point, I've covered a poll before, and I'll pass right to you, CJ, on this. I covered a poll before. It was like a year and a half ago. It was a long time ago. It was a very long segment ago, where it was like 75% of Democratic voters had no idea what Joe Biden's Israel policy was. And the premise of the poll, and I got dick for it. We don't got time for it, but I reported on it where it's like most people support Democrats when they don't know their Israel policy, but then when they learn their Israel policy, even like liberals turn against it. Just to that point. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass to you for your next few segments here. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, no, just to add though to this, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to tie all of these together because I mean they're literally together. So I'm going to add a little bit to Bernie, but it leads into the AIPAC story, which leads into our government being owned by Zionists. It's really just step by step. So just to add to this, just the headline, Bernie, the left face of genocide. That's where I got the title. And it's funny, Nick, you brought this story and we didn't have any idea that we both were going to cover this. I already had this set, but I do want to just end the segment with this part that they say in this article. And to your point, Nick and Margaret, everybody's calling out Bernie Sanders. This article is not even a day old, not even 24 hours old, but I'll read this. It says the defense of Israeli onslaught was welcomed by the war criminals and their accomplices. White House Deputy Communications Director Herbie Zetzkine, I think that's how you said, tweeted out quotes from Sanders' interview. Within an hour of Sanders' appearance, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, otherwise known as AIPAC, posted a clip of his remarks on X. In a subsequent tweet, the Zionist lobby said, "Thank you, Senator Sanders, for your clear and principled opposition to calls for ceasefire with Hamas."
That's a career low light. That's a low light that ever existed.
That'll be, I don't want to give any analogies. I was just about to do what they do in corporate media all the time, but this is not a good thing for AIPAC to be calling you out, but it also leads to the next story that we're going to be talking about, and that's our government being owned, bought and paid for by AIPAC. And this is two hot stories that's been going on, but I'm gonna put them together. The first being AIPAC and Netanyahu meeting with AIPAC leadership, like the top AIPAC leadership, which should be illegal. And then a vote
imagine if American PAC
was just meeting with Go
Putin.
ahead.
Just quickly, imagine if American PAC was just meeting with Putin. Well, how the establishment would freaking out. Oh man, we got SUPAC over here. We just met with Xi Jinping about how to advance Chinese interests. Like, just imagine. Well, sorry, go ahead, CJ.
AIPAC should have to register as a foreign agent. They're a foreign agent, and they should have to register as such.
So both of you are going right, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the things I was going to bring up. What was I just hearing this on in an in-depth conversation? Anyway, I can't remember, but they were saying everybody in Congress should be registered as a foreign agent for Israel. Every single person in Congress, and I absolutely believe that's true. But I do want to just first get Margaret your reaction. Everybody's reacting about the picture with Netanyahu and meeting with AIPAC. But what is your overall reaction about the meeting with AIPAC? And then more broadly, like, what does this mean? Like, what does it say that a foreign leader can meet with a PAC that contributes so much money to so many campaigns in our politics here in the U.S.? If you could speak on that, any other surrounding topics you want to.
Well, I just want to say that I'll repeat what I said before. They should have to register as a foreign agent. That's all. Do what you do, but you're a foreign agent, and you need to. That's what needs to happen. And it also tells us, some people in their attempt to defend the Israel lobby will say, well, it's like every other lobby, as if that's a defense. That's the problem. That is the problem. You have these lobbies who make sure that the people don't get what they want. They make what is your defense of the Israel lobby? That it's no worse than big oil that's killing the planet, that they're no worse than big pharma who make sure we don't have affordable health care. That is the problem. And when people talk about this democracy that we allegedly have, it's just not true. We don't have a democracy. And we don't have a democracy because of these interests like AIPAC, like some of the other lobbies that I have mentioned.
Yeah, and now let me bring up the actual article and just read a little bit on it, not much, and then we're going to move into the next part of this story. But like I said, you see on the screen, Netanyahu holds AIPAC leadership in Israel on solidarity trip. And it says the primer thanked them for their, quote, deep and consistent support of the state of Israel. And this is the picture that kind of has gone viral. Everybody comment or retweeting it, but that's
those are your
Netanyahu.
Real leaders, fam. Those are the real overlords.
That is it. That is true. That is true. So when people use the term deep state, this is a lot of what they're talking about. These are unelected people, and I'm not talking about Netanyahu, but these are unelected people who are literally running the government. These people, the AIPAC, own our government, and we're going to get to that story in just a little bit. And I know you reacted on Twitter, Margaret, to this, but what I want to ask you about before I read some of the article is, are you surprised by when Israel's trying to do all of these things and the reaction is just not what they would hope for? Like anything they put out is just an awful reaction, like this picture. They think this is an article and it's just a terrible reaction. But what say you about that, the sort of reaction they're getting for anything that Israel and their genocide enablers are putting out?
Well, I'm glad they're finally getting pushback, and these are the biggest snowflakes. They buy and sell like the other interests I've mentioned, who big pharma or the military industrial complex or any of these other awful people who control our country, which people keep insisting is a democracy. And if you say anything, they start crying. They start talking about how they suffered or listen. That's not the answer to what I'm talking about or what anybody else is talking about. So they're like, well, we have a right to do it. Yes, they have a right to do it, but they need to register as a foreign agent. Register as a foreign agent, say what you really are, and then you can meet with whoever the heck you want to. I don't expect them not to. Of course, they met in person. They've been meeting online since October 7th. So, they're members of Congress who brag about their, closeness to AIPAC. So there was nothing shocking here, but they are encouraging a foreign government to do what the American people do not want them to do, to act against the interests of the American people, to act against what people in this country want. And that's what we have to remember about all of these relationships that these lobbyists have with the foreign government or a U.S. entity or whomever.
And I'll just read a couple of facts and then move to the next part. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with the leadership of AIPAC on Wednesday at his Jerusalem office. And then I read that already, but led by AIPAC president, and I'll say his name, Michael Tunchi. The delegation is on a solidarity visit to the Jewish state. Now, I must say, the guy, Michael, this president, his home was vandalized in Los Angeles recently. And I think the article does talk about it, but we're not going to get. Let's get to it right here. Now, during the meeting, Gatz addressed rising anti-Semitism around the globe and discussed the November 23rd attack by anti-Israel rioters on the Los Angeles home of Tunchin, I think that's how you say his name, which the LAPD is investigating as a hate crime. So they're investigating somebody who is saying no to genocide, a pro-genocide person, and calling a anti-genocide person, they're calling that person a hate crime. They're going to call that a hate crime. Now, moving to the next point that I wanted to make with this, is this the reason Benjamin Netanyahu, it doesn't feel like, even though like Joe Biden, Margaret, is putting pressure on him to like ease up, he's kind of whatever, I'll do what I want. Even in their own media, he speaks in a way where it's like he is the boss of Joe Biden. And I believe the reason he feels so secure in that is because of AIPAC. And what do you think of that sort of idea? AIPAC is sort of over the president. They're like his superiors, and that's the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu feels like he doesn't necessarily have to bow down to what Joe Biden is asking for.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind Joe Biden is in fact on the same page. Now they have a problem. They've got a PR problem because the people have spoken up and said this is not what they want. So they're sort of trying to backtrack while still defending Israel. But I think it's important to understand the limits of the presidency. Just as I said, people have certain positions because they toe the line. The same thing is true of presidents. What did Biden say when he was running? Nothing will fundamentally change, he said to the fat cat funders of American politics. It could be the railroads, it could be AIPAC, it could be big oil, it could be big pharma, it could be military industrial complex, it could be any and all of them. Presidents are limited in what they do. We have an oligarchy in this country, and they determine what presidents do. And AIPAC is an example of this oligarchy.
I want people to understand just how ridiculously corrupt the grift that is AIPAC. And I don't use that term lightly. But if there's ever been a grifter, it's AIPAC. I want to try my best to explain the fraud that has been done on the American people. So AIPAC spent $17 million last election, planning on spending $100 million this next election to help people win their congressional seats. Then the people who win the congressional seats vote to send billions of dollars to Israel that then pays for the health care, housing, and all the great stuff that Israel has that our country do not have. So then what Israel is doing is paying for their benefits, paying for the weapons, paying for the war, using U.S. funds that come from the measly $17 million that is made to pay for their congressional politicians. So what are the politicians doing? The politicians are sending millions of dollars to Israel. They are allowing Zionists to get a massive amount of power, so it cycles back to them so they can get a Washington, D.C. job, so they can get free healthcare for life. You guys have no idea how the extent of which this grift is. It's a circular money funnel that goes to Zionists, that go to the politicians, that go to their benefits, that go to the Israeli politicians' benefits, they go to their war, they go back to AIPAC. It's a fucking giant grift, and people have no idea the fraud that's been done. But go ahead, Margaret, if you want to chime in.
Sure. I just want to say, I'm glad you pointed out the healthcare issue. Israel would not exist, wouldn't have anything without U.S. public money. Taxpayers in this country pay for everything in Israel. Israelis have a national healthcare system. So we pay for somebody else to have a national healthcare system, but we're always told we can't have that. And if grift is the perfect word, and you're putting up this graphic of only 2 members of Congress did not vote. Rashida Tlaib, to her eternal shame, just voted present. She didn't even have they got her mind right to equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. We had the Senate saying that taking time instead of taking care of our business, making a statement that of criticizing college students for criticizing Israel, calling them anti-Semites. These people are errand boys and errand girls for the powerful, and that's all they are. And we need to
absolutely. I know you have to get out of here soon. Thank you for your time. What we're going to be trying to do, and we're telling all of our guests this, is that we want to be engaged with conversation with more of our guests more frequently. So We will be reaching out to you and some of our other guests more frequently. We won't let so much time go by before we bring you back on. So anything you want to shout out before you have to take off here? Anything upcoming, any movement?
Maury, do you mind if I get your thoughts on something just real quick?
What's that?
Henry Kissinger.
He's dead. Everybody dies eventually.
If you don't mind, I want to quickly ask you about your thoughts about that.
He was a war criminal. He was, when we talk about these presidents and these secretaries of state, he killed a lot of people in Laos and Cambodia. September 11th, 1973, overthrew the government, elected government of Chile. He was a killer. That's what all these people are. And now he is gone, which inevitably, no matter how powerful you are, eventually that day comes. So that's all I have to say about Henry Kissinger. Everybody should check out Black Agenda Report every week, blackagendareport.org. Wednesday, we have a new issue. Friday, we have Black Agenda Radio. So go to blackagendareport.org. And we're on all social media. We are on X, on Facebook, etc. And thank you both so much for having me back.
Always great to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margaret. I'm going to put her back and finish out this clip. I'm sorry, finish out this segment. But Margaret, always great to have on, and her insight always on point. And I'm going to say this while she was on, but she's funnier. I don't know if she knows how funny she is on Twitter, but she's pretty hilarious to me in some of her tweets there. But back to the story, Nick, and we can kind of finish out this. I do want to cover her article because I did put that on the title. She did write a brief article about the misleadership class. It's connected to this and how they're trying to mislead the Black population also on Israel. So it's all connected. But nearly the entire U.S. House of Representatives just equated, Nick, anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism. And I do want to read a snippet from this article because we thought, remember Rashida Tlaib, she's, doing all these great things. We're like, wow, I guess the Palestinian issue has woken up Rashida Tlaib. I mean, is this something that's radicalizing her to where she's now gonna pivot from the squad and be an actual socialist, an actual fight? And then that was the question. No, Nick, she's not gonna do that.
Remember why I said CJ? I was like, this is her chance to do a massive face turn, but she probably won't. Yeah. Like, that was a perfect opportunity. Like, all right, I know I was wrong before, but I'm gonna start getting these issues right. I'm being more inquisitive. I won't just listen to the establishment on stuff like Ukraine. I'm gonna use this opportunity to face turn. Nope, just fuck that shit. That's too tough. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so here's just a snippet from the article. This one is from the peoplesdispatch.org with that great headline. Tlaib argued, this is her reason for voting president. Now, understand, it's going to sound just like what Nick said about the professional managerial class. What they explained, like what Farkeed Shakir in that article you were reading said about Bernie Sanders, it makes no sense, but they try to act like it does. But here it goes. Tlaib argued that the resolution ignores the existence of Palestinian people and brings us no closer to peaceful coexistence. What the fuck does that have to do, Nick?
So why not vote no?
That anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Like,
that's what they would do. They do this all the time, CJ. And I know you picked up on the trend as well. Whenever they vote president, they will explain why they should have voted no. They did it. They did with the Iron Dome as well. They always do this.
Yeah.
She did with the Capitol Police. They explain, oh man, I think this is bad, but I'm not going to vote no for it. What? Go ahead.
Massey, who was a Republican who actually voted no, but he says Massey wrote on X that he voted against it because now this is what should have come from him or her. It equates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is deplorable, which it is, but expanding it to include criticism of Israel is not helpful. Now, he's kind of milquetoast with that. I wouldn't say not helpful. We would go a lot further than that. But you mean to tell me the only Palestinian elected official can't even bring herself to say that in her vote no against it? You can't even bring yourself to say that. What do you think has occurred, Nick? What do you think has occurred from when her saying, Joe, we're not going to forget this, to now not even wanting to say anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism? What do you think has happened? Have they really gotten to her like Margaret Kimberley has said?
Yeah, there's no reason for her to be this weak, other than performing the role that we assigned to her. We explained to people before the role of Pramila Jayapal and Rashida Tlaib, even when they get the issue right, is to be an ineffective left leader. So they would say the right thing, but then they would perform and they would engage in a strategy that's completely incoherent to your strategy. Like, you already was injured. AIPAC has already come after you. So why still be milquetoast?
Right.
When they do that and they don't understand that they project weakness. When I sit here and when I make my argument, these motherfuckers are afraid to engage with me. Like, I see what the fuck that guy named Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin going ham. Like, I saw he went after Bree as well. All these right wingers are going after left wingers for quote unquote defending Hamas. You know this, CJ, none of them go after me. You know, because I'm not projecting weakness on this shit. When people are like, oh no, I think Hamas is kind of bad, but is it kind of unfair that nigga? That's weakness. They shoot those people up, CJ. They shoot those people up. Meanwhile, I unequivocally stand with people who engage in armed resistance. Don't you believe in give me liberty or give me death? You guys see how engaging with one is way harder than engaging with the other? Because Rashida projects weakness, and this projection of weakness actually makes it harder to sell our positions, because people who are not sure and not well read on these issues, CJ, they see her weakness, they're like, why is she unsure? You know how like Morning Joe, when talking about issues they're not comfortable, they feel squirmy. We like, that's weakness.
You can tell.
People see that in the progressives as well. I think you get my point, but CJ, anything you want to add? I'll pass
So you basically saying the progressive or the social democrats position is I condemn Hamas too, and then meanwhile they turn to Nick. It's like Hamas is a freedom resistant bitch. Say something.
And I give credit to Dan Cohen, because Dan Cohen does the same thing. Dan Cohen the same thing, because Dan Cohen explained, he's like, bro, I'm a Jew. I was in Gaza and Hamas protected me, bro. Like, Hamas gave me guidance, like make sure I was safe as a reporter, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm like, when you condemn Hamas, think about it. Listen to what Bernie said. If you believe in that, isn't he right? Like, if you believe that Hamas is as evil as the establishment cell, why will you agree with the ceasefire? Why will you believe in them if you believe they're that evil? That's incoherent, right? So I believe that people have the right to fight for their colonized land. So you guys see how I have a consistent belief that can't be easily picked and prod? So when you have, in another example I give, just to explain the weakness of social democracy, is when like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie, whenever they talk about a wealth tax is weak. Like, wealth tax is social democrat shit. We talking about seizing the means of production. The workers should own the means of production. Because so when they ask like, how much they be taxed? Go ahead, CJ.
What does a wealth tax mean? This is what they're saying. This is why social democracy is weak. This is a wealth tax is saying, keep the riches you got from your exploitation, just contribute a little more to the pot. No, nigga. We're like, no. No. You ain't keeping no money from no exploitations. But go ahead.
A wealth tax allows people to keep their stolen labor value. This is what Michael Prenti explained. This is why he was never a big Bernie person, because he's talking about tax the rich. He's not a Democrat. He's not a socialist. Like, socialists not talking about taxing. We're talking about seizing the means of production, meaning we own national industry. We own the means of healthcare. We own the means of oil and all this important industry that no one should have privatized, correct? And the reason why I bring this up, I don't want to go on too long a spill, because I could. You guys see how when progressives talk about Israel and Palestine, they are weak. Like, social democrats are talking about taxing the rich. Whenever they do interviews, how many interviews have you seen, like, for example, like Elizabeth Warren on Fox Business, and they're like, give me a number. Give me a number. What and then 55%, 50, I don't know. That question legitimately always stumbles them. If you haven't paid attention, start noticing that they always get stumbled when asked a number because taxing the rich is kind of inherently incoherent. What we need is preventing the loss and stuff and the theft of labor value. You know what I mean? Seizing them in production, meaning that they can't even have anything to steal. Oh, you know what I mean? Right. And China shows how it's done. If you are someone who engaged, if you're a part of very important infrastructure that is owned by the government, you invest in projects that help the people, you're allowed to be wealthy. That's why capitalists are confused. They're like, why are people wealthy in China? Because China, like, you're allowed to thrive. Marxist socialists, we want people to thrive, but we own the shit. We dictate the shit. But I'll spare you guys. I don't want to go on my lecture. I have many times, but go ahead, CJ, I'll pass it to you.
No. Great to add that in. People love when we go on those tangents, believe it or not. I see it in the comments all the time.
Yeah.
Notable.
For the sake of time, I'll stop myself.
I'll just finish this part because this is something I also want to kind of zoom into, Nick. Notable is that almost all of the most progressive representatives voted in favor of this resolution, including those who have called for a ceasefire in Israel's war on Gaza. Those include Cori Bush, who introduced a ceasefire resolution, AOC, Jamal Bowman, and Ilhan Omar. But this also speaks to what we were just talking about, Nick, the social democracy. You see how if you're a Palestinian and you say, I'm going to team up with the most left person to gain my freedom, understand how the dynamic of teaming up with people who say ceasefire, but then send money to the people who are murdering you. You see how you will never get out of that? You see how they're going to just be, they're hugging you, but handing money and weapons to the people who's killing you. You see how you're never going to be, you're going to always be in this perpetual state trying to placate two sides when one of the sides is Nazis, slave owners and Zionists. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. There's no both sides when the other side is evil people. And that's essentially the critique. You know, like if I were to like holistically talk about social democracy, that is essentially the critique that an indigenous population, a marginalized population has against teaming up with social democracy. The shit, it never really gets to the depth of capitalism, of white supremacy that's going to fix the problem for the people who are most marginalized. It's just never going to do that. And we're seeing it so crystallized, Nick, with the Palestinian struggle. Let's imagine, Nick, you were a pen pal buddy with some of the pro-Palestinian, so-called pro-Palestinian people over here. Just know, let's take the Arabs in Michigan. The ones who voted for Democrats, they made this deal with Democrats. They said, listen, you guys aren't actually pro-Palestinian, but you're the best we got. And look, they teamed up with them. And what did the Democrats who teamed up with Arabs in Michigan do? What did they do to the Michigan Arabs, Nick? They fucking turned their back on them and stabbed them in the back. That's social democracy. That's social democracy. My final words on that. If you had anything else, did you have another story you want to cover? We got a.
I have one quick story, and I don't know if you have anything else. I can keep this shorter today, but I
have one quick story too. After that, the Margaret story. Remember the Margaret Kimberley?
Oh yeah, good.
We
can finish with two. Yeah, we can finish with two quick rapid fire. In fact, before I do that, let's read some super chats. Before we do the quick two rapid fire, big shout out to the Jimmy Dore show, a friend of the show. I think we got Jimmy coming on here soon, right? Thank for the
we haven't narrowed down a date. He's saying that we just got to pick a date. We got to pick a date that works with his schedule.
Yeah. We always good to have Jimmy on every like few months or so, every few weeks. So that should be coming soon, I think. Thank for 499. You both are very disrespectful to the establishment. Words your manners. Israel is our ally. Well said, Jimmy. Thank for the 499. Thank for the 99 cents of Biden for the super sticker. We also have DC with the $2. I should read a few I saw from DC. Erasing Palestinian Semitic identity equal anti-Semitism. Thank for the $2, DC. We have another one. Actually, I see 3 from DC. The squad aren't even social democrats. They're neoliberals.
True. Point taken.
I concede. I can make the argument either way, but you got a good point. I not it's not like something I would want to fight you on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like AOC and them at least talk about like domestic worker issues, because whenever we talk about these issues, and we gotta be clear, like social democracy is an improvement over general neoliberal capitalism. Is that social democracy will never be able to defeat neoliberal capitalism. It will always capitulate to neoliberal capitalism. It will always side with them. So we can be, and this is my opinion. I know there are probably some Marxists and communists who probably disagree with me, but I think you can be honest enough to say that social democracy in the system where you have high taxes on the rich that pay for social services, that's not season mean of production. That is never the end goal, but that's better than neoliberal capitalism, the same way that neoliberal capitalism is better than feudalism. I think we can acknowledge that, but we got to be clear. Social democracy is not the end goal. The general approach of social democrats weakens the strength of the workers. That's my general position, and that's not. I'm sure there's like maybe different like communists.
Yeah, and let me take a smack at it. Let me take a smack at it and to speak to the point of how it's a different perspective, because I would break it down as saying that the reason that they would be labeled neoliberals is and not social democrats is that they project themselves to be social democracy Democrats, but if you look at their vote, is more neoliberal. Now, if we were to compare actual social democracy to neoliberalism, yes, social democracy is a step up. But if we were looking at countries that are actual social democracy, like a Finland, that is an improvement to neoliberalism. That is a step up. Finland is taking care of their people locally. They have some nice, social democracy safety net programs. That's a step up. But we don't really have social democrats here. We have
I can
neoliberals who market themselves as social democrats, but they're not really following through, even with that ideology, even if we think it's milquetoast. So
I can agree with that.
So that's another perspective.
Yeah, thank you for $2, DC. Pinochet was called the father of neoliberalism. Speaking of Pinochet, we're going to talk about the guy who supported him and Henry Kissinger very soon. The father of neoliberalism. I have a hotspot video coming. That's why it's a short segment, because I just want to quickly cover it, get your thoughts on it.
Did it come out yet or not yet?
They work on it. It should be coming out here maybe within an hour or two.
Okay.
Everyone should follow Hotspot. They killing the game. Great anti-imperialist coverage, and they help me edit the Hotspot videos. I have full creative control, but they just help me put it together and make it look nice. So big shout out to them for helping me, Nico, and elevating anti-imperialist voice in general. So thank you, DC, for the super chats. Just a few more here. Thank you for the $11. Hobbs, we about to cover Henry Kissinger. YouTube won't let me say his name like Beetlejuice. Really? Is that true? YouTube self-censor a lot. Like people yell at us like, "Arben, you censoring comments?" Like, bro, you guys realize sometimes YouTube censor shit because y'all cuss. There are a lot of things that we don't do. They're like automatic moderators. So that's weird. They won't let you say Henry Kissinger. That's kind of strange. Thank you for the 1999, John. What do y'all think about the Communist Party USA and the Socialist Rifle Association? CJ, you want to take that on? Socialist Rifle Association. Anyone for arming themselves is pretty solid. The Communist Party USA. I
haven't heard good things about them.
There've been a lot of strife, internal drama. There are individual members who are based, but my entire
just like a lot of organizations, a lot of organizations. Go ahead.
Our focus has been building like our movement, like our party, the RBN chapter, that kind of stuff. But I generally have solidarity with people who label themselves communists, even if they don't have everything together. I wish them well. Like, I don't have any understatement for them. Like, I don't have anything like spicy for you guys on this. I wish them well. I know they have some internal drama. They're not perfect.
No, it's like with any. It's like with any organization, Nick. I've heard they started out well, but what do you think a communist organization is going to be attacked and infiltrated by capitalists in the United States and try to move them to the right by wanting to endorse Democrats, and in some cases they have, and that's what's happening with them. And so, to your point, Nick, there's a lot of great people who's part of the organization who's trying to keep it authentic and keep it true to communism, and then there's some who is obviously trying to do some other things, have other goals. So
yeah, I know there are a lot of people there are a lot of people who feel strongly about this. I'm not one of the people. I hear things about them, but let me know if it's true. This is by Devin in the chat. Let me know. It says CPUSA is an org, as an org is a Dem op. I heard this a few times. Once again, I don't know how true this is because I personally haven't looked into it. I don't like sharing my opinions unless I like really engage on it. Is that true? If that's true, that's bad. You know what I mean? I'm not too engaged on that. So unfortunately, we're not the best people to ask about this. I'm not engaged.
Just because we're not engaged on the topic as much, we're just kind of.
If they are like a dim op, that's fucking horrible. You should never comment so communist if you can even be accused of that. I'm never accused of being a dim op. I'm accused of being of like an agent trying to destroy liberals. So how is that even an accusation that can be credible? I don't know if it is or not. But anyway, let's get to the last comment, at least my last rapid fire segment of the day. The great news, kind of, because like I've been feeling lukewarm about this. Maybe I should pull my tweet up. I feel like a lot of people resonated with it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's pull up Henry Kissinger's. I'll pull up his resume here soon because Henry Kissinger is the Michael Jordan of war criminals. He's at least like first team, right? First team war criminal. Because I want to be careful because there's a lot of bad people out there. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like over dramatic. But if he was to make a first team war, you know how they like first team NBA, first team war criminal. This motherfucker Henry Kissinger put up numbers that will make Thanos proud of him. Numbers that will make the Joker blush, Lex Luthor proud. Like in real life, let's pull up his Hall of Fame career. This is the Hall of Fame war criminal career of Henry Kissinger. Look at these stats. These are stats that young up-and-coming war criminals wish they had. This is why he's the Kobe of war criminals, the Michael Jordan of war criminals, the Muhammad Ali of war criminals, the Fedor Emelianenko of war criminals. Let's look at Cambodia. 500,000 people killed. And let's see if I can find the receipt real quick, because famously, Anthony Bourdain, it can't be that hard to find. That's why I want to find Anthony. He said if anyone went to Cambodia and saw what Henry Kissinger did, talked to the locals, you will want to beat Henry Kissinger up with your bare hands. Here it is. I didn't have it saved, but I know it's not that hard to find. Here it is. You guys see, I'm just searching on Google real quick. Here's Anthony Bourdain. Once you've been to Cambodia, you'll never want to stop beating Henry Kissinger to death with your bare hands. He went on to describe how he needed to go to The Hague. And he later tweeted that there are a lot of things that I said in my life that I regret. But one thing I don't regret is saying that I would beat the shit out of Henry Kissinger in my hands. That was a later follow-up tweet I don't have saved. But he is the butcher of Cambodia. Like, he is like their devil. Like, and in a lack of a better term, you know what I mean? Like, he's the guy that is gonna be a ghost and a shadow on that society for generations and generations to come. Because this tragic figure never got justice for what he did in Cambodia. And we're just getting started. Once again, war criminals and the establishment loved him. You guys see, this is one of the few decent headlines. Not even a base headline. I wouldn't say that. But you see Henry Kissinger, war criminal beloved by Americans' ruling class, which is not an exaggeration. This guy was beloved. He was a mentor of Hillary Clinton. He was an advisor to multiple presidents. And every single White House except Biden recently, because Henry Kissinger was critical of the war on Ukraine to begin with, not because he had an objection, but every single White House except Biden has invited Henry Kissinger as a guest of honor, despite his record. So America, the true terrorist country, the most violent empire in modern human history, they see these numbers and they respect it more than anything else, CJ. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton and war criminals all across the United States, they dream of having a kill.
He's the bar. He's the bar. He's the bar.
Anthony Blinken like, bro, let's go. I'm quick catching up, man. I'm gonna get this motherfucker, bro. I'm sponsoring this genocide over here. I sponsored the Yemen genocide. I was down for Iraq, Afghanistan, bro. I catch you, bro. He like, I'm up and coming, bro. I need to. If he's Michael Jordan, I'm LeBron. I think I'm coming because he is the bar. That's East Timor, the invasion he supported, 200,000 deaths. That the Pinochet dictatorship, which was extremely genocidal, committed violent ethnic cleansing, killed countless people under Pinochet. Horrible guy. Supported by Henry Kissinger. Bangladesh, 3 million deaths. The Argentina dirty war. He had 30,000 killed, 30,000 disappeared. So 60,000. You had Laos, which is deeply under discussed. And I do have to read. That's been on my bucket list for a very long time. It's reading more about Laos. My friend is really good into Laos. Didi. Our friend Didi is actually really good on Laos. She used to write about it all the time. That's on my bucket list. Laos is something that a lot of people don't talk about. The U.S. atrocities in Laos. I don't have it either. Once again, that's on my bucket list. I need to read more about that. But Henry Kissinger had a big deal with that. And then we obviously know his life work, his NBA Finals performance, the Vietnam War, the butcher of Cambodia, the butcher of Vietnam, the supporter of Pinochet, the butcher of Bangladesh. You guys see why I say these, like, war criminals wish they can do this. Not only did he do this, he got away with it, fam. That's why I haven't really been celebrating on Twitter. Because it's only fun when these people die young.
Yeah.
Because you know when Rush Limbaugh died, Rush Limbaugh was below life expectancy. That shit was perfect. when these war criminals, members of the ruling class, when they die at or below life expectancy, that shit is perfect. But when someone like this lives to be at 100, it's hard to see that there's any justice in this world. My grandpa lived 25 years shorter life than Henry Kissinger. And this is what I'll just read what I tweeted earlier. I think a decent amount of people can relate to this. I said, I don't even feel like celebrating Henry Kissinger's death. He lived to be 100. He lived to be around 25 years longer than my grandfather. At the end of the day, he won. He lived a comfortable life, had health care. The peasants hate him, but you don't care about the peasants. He loved amongst his class. So he lived in a social, comfortable life, 100 years old, with millions of deaths on his hand. And you guys think there's justice in our society? What kind of God will allow this to happen? What kind of God will allow my grandfather, a family man, never raised his voice, loved and respected by his community? What kind of God will allow him to die 25 years before Henry Kissinger? I know I'm getting a little deep here, but this is not, I don't celebrate this. This is very tragic to me. Like, there's a certain point where someone lives so long, you're like, yeah, he's 100, bro. He won. It's sad to see. And what that said, this last time I said, because I know I went a little bit long on this segment.
I got something to add too when you're done.
Yes, sure. One of the reasons I do believe it's very important to, and I covered this in my hotspot video, one of the reasons why it's important for us to celebrate the death of Henry Kissinger, you already see a lot of liberal establishment blue checks melting down like they do every time, like when John McCain died, right? Like when Dianne Feinstein died. You guys are so mean. You guys are mocking the death of these people. And I don't have any of these say, but they are everywhere on Twitter, man. You gotta
over Kissinger? If they'll do that for Kissinger, man, come on.
Yeah, fam. They already doing it. And I am, not only should we be celebratory when people like Henry Kissinger die, it's our duty to. You guys understand? It's our duty to celebrate the deaths of war criminals like Henry Kissinger. Because what happens otherwise? They get holidays like Christopher Columbus, CJ. If you're not willing to speak ill of the dead. All of a sudden, the establishment with all the resources, you got Ron DeSantis and the Republicans who trying to ban critical race theory and control education as it is right now. As someone who studied history is written by the winners. So they take a while. You know, they're not too audacious. Anyway, they wait a few years. Then all of a sudden, you're going to see a few individual statements. Man, that dude, George W. Bush, he really loved his country, though. George Washington, he liberated our country from the British. You see, they start excluding the slaves. They start excluding stuff. All of a sudden, 10 years, 15 years, they're going to exclude Cambodia. They're going to exclude Vietnam. They're going to be like, and you already see it. You already see it. Let me see if I can find another one before I skip to the, I got to get this ad blocker thing. Fuck. Here's CNBC. If you search his name, you're going to see a ton of headlines that are going to make you fucking vomit. Actually, I'll say that one next. Here's the ADL. Henry Kissinger, the ADL, fucking guys. Henry Kissinger was a towering intellect.
What?
The ADL and all these establishment pieces, establishment think pieces, institutions are eulogizing this guy who has a kill count that way surpasses the fucking Joker. The Joker in the DC comics, I Googled this in preparation for my hotspot video. His death, according to DC comic nerd, Joker killed around 3,000 or so people in the DC continuity. Joker 3,000, Kissinger millions. Do you guys understand? Meanwhile, you guys are praising and eulogizing someone that made Joker look like a fucking kitten. Henry Kissinger was a towering intellect, a diplomat, a practitioner, CJ. He's a practitioner now.
Yeah, Jesus. These people.
3 million dead in Vietnam. That was one hell of a practitioning. He practiced the shit out of Vietnam. Can you guys believe this? And I'm showing you guys a few because this segment will be way longer if I pulled all of them. So I'm gonna show you guys just this one here. Google his name and you would throw up. For real. Henry Kissinger was a towering intellect, diplomat, a practitioner who, not without controversy, millions dead, just a little controversy, CJ. He helped shape American foreign policy with a lasting impact worldwide. A refugee from Nazi Germany. Now they about humanize him. This is his backstory. A refugee from Nazi Germany, the first Jewish Secretary of State. This guy who got millions dead. ADL's like, yes, our first Jewish war criminal. Not first, but another Jewish war criminal. ADL's, they are celebrating the fact that, yeah, this guy is Jewish. Killed millions of people. Thank God he killed millions of people, but he was Jewish, though. You gotta know that. He was unapologetically about his heritage, CJ, and his embrace of the importance of American global power and democratic values. Tell me that shit didn't make you want to vomit.
It did.
And they're saying stuff like this. This is CNBC. And this is the last one I'm reading. I swear to God, this segment could be way longer, but I won't because I got a hotspot video coming on this soon. Henry Kissinger, the towering American diplomat. You notice they using that term towering? Towering intellect, towering diplomat. This is the word that was sent to all these corporate media outlets, apparently. The towering American diplomat. And they talk about how he's a Harvard professor, he's a great foreign policy thinker, and they praise his fucking accomplishments. The establishment is praising his accomplishments because, CJ, according to him, civilian deaths don't mean anything because he helped America shape its dominance in foreign policy, which you can't even make that argument. Henry Kissinger, foreign policy emboldened and created terrorist groups. It radicalized the world against America. It has made America unsafe. Neoliberalism created and funded terror cells. There are countries, and I don't really care about this, but just based on their talking point of having a foreign policy that keep America safe, having a strong America, Henry Kissinger's foreign policy made America weaker, or people's opinion of America weaker. So when you look at the substance of what they praise him on, of someone who just, yeah, I know he fucked up sometimes, but at least he made America strong. No, he didn't. His foreign policy, his advocacy for endless military spending weakened the working class. It destroyed our infrastructure, destroyed our country. We're going the way that Rome is going because of people like Henry Kissinger. But there are people like Hillary Clinton that propped up because she was Henry Kissinger mentored her. But anyway, that's my short story. CJ, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do want to add because
go ahead, CJ.
This Henry Kissinger story. I mean, with this guy's kill count and how we've been waiting this long for this guy to kick the bucket, both of us got to bring a couple of receipts. So I got a couple of receipts here.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping you haven't seen this, Nick, because I want to get your surprise reaction on this.
Jesus Christ.
Yes, man. Morning Joe.
Yo,
fuck.
I'm gonna say. I purposely avoided. I seen the thumbnails of videos from MSNBC eulogizing this guy, and I'm like, I can't do it. I literally couldn't. I can't do it. I skipped it. The same way I skipped like MSNBC like the week of October 7th. Like, no, I can't do it. That's the same way with Henry Kissinger. I saw Fox News cover it. I was like, I can't click it. I can't do it. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's about to be fucking brutal.
The reason why this is probably the worst, and when I say the worst, like it's the most cringe, because Andrea Mitchell, you have to understand Andrea Mitchell. If they called her Andrea Greenspan, you would know who she is. She's the wife of Greenspan, okay? This is not a regular person, okay? When she wakes up early to come on the show, and then you got David Ignatius, the guy who writes for Washington Post, they say that Joe Biden only reads him. When you got those people waking up just to talk about Henry Kissinger, get the fuck out of here, Nick. Let's listen to this.
Oh, God.
We'll take a look at the life and legacy of former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, who passed away yesterday at the age of 100. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have columnist and associate editor for the Washington Post, David Ignatius, White House editor for Politico, Sam Stein, and NBC News chief foreign affairs correspondent and host of Andrea Mitchell Reports, Andrea Mitchell is here.
I know people think we're radical.
Andrea was just telling me a story.
And it's not a long thought. But I know people think we're radical. But I want you guys to realize this panel of people you're seeing right now are the most radical people in the world. They have the most radical foreign policy, the most radical economics, and the most radical worldview. I don't know what they say, but I'm sure this segment is going to be fucking horrific. And people think, and like the media, they labeled us as the most extreme, far left, radical. And I know it's fun to call yourself radicals, but we're really not, man. People nod our heads to what we say. Like, these people, if you ask the world on what they view about stuff, these people are the most extreme, radical, violent, bloodthirsty political monsters in the world. And I am not exaggerating. Let's watch. I haven't seen the segment. Maybe they might say something that back that up. But you guys know these people are fucking.
No, Nick, you pretty accurate. You haven't even seen it. Pretty accurate. All right, let's see.
All right, I'll listen.
When she heard the news about the passing of Henry Kissinger, I think we all took a moment to reflect when the news broke.
Well, so much to reflect on. As the New York Times said this morning, rightfully, he was a hugely significant figure in U.S. foreign policy.
That's one way to say
politics. I had no idea. He was on the cover. And for those of us a little bit older, this actually used to mean something in a significant way. He was on the cover of Time magazine 15 times.
Wow.
And one.
Now, Nick, do you think he was on the cover of Time magazine because he killed a lot of people 15 times? Or was he on the cover of the magazine because we live in a psychopathic country where we celebrate murderers? Like, it's an obscene that this guy will be on the cover of Time magazine. But go ahead.
Can we talk about how insane it is? You guys saw how our first thought was when it came to cover Henry Kissinger was to talk about, I don't know, the million people he killed. I don't know, kind of important topic to bring up when you talk about Henry Kissinger. What do they bring up, CJ? These deeply unserious children brought up how many magazine covers he was on. CJ, imagine you talking about a death of any other serial killer. Imagine some guy killed, raped, and murdered like 15 women, and then you talking about his death. You're like, man, isn't it interesting he was on a magazine cover before? Like, nigga, that's like the least interesting thing about him. You guys brought the least interesting thing about Henry Kissinger.
All right, let's listen.
One of those times, David Ignatius did not make his boss, Richard Nixon, very happy. It was when Time called Nixon and Kissinger Men of the Year in 1972. But a very complex legacy, as well as, I must just say on a personal note, a very complicated relationship.
When the ruling class says complicated, understand that means this person or the event was terrible, but it was in the interest of the United States, so we're just going to call it complicated. They say that about the relationship with Israel too.
To your point, do they use that language talking about Putin, Xi Jinping? You know, people who killed fractions and fractions and fractions less people than Henry Kissinger. Like, Putin, who is considered the worst person of all time to them, if you take the worst interpretation of the Ukraine war, he's still way behind. Like, CJ, imagine if you had Putin derangement syndrome. You have the worst interpretation of the Ukraine war. You believe he truly was genocidal and wanted to kill as many Ukrainians as possible. He's still miles away if you think that from Henry Kissinger. But they talk about Putin as if he's the devil incarnate. There's no euphemisms. There's no soft language. There's no it's fucking complicated. No, this Putin is a tyrant, the likes of Hitler, the worst we ever seen. He need to be tried in The Hague. Like, you guys see we should talk about our ruling class, and I said this many times before, the same way they talk about their enemies is how we should talk about our ruling class. They engage in soft language and euphemisms when doing propaganda for our war criminals, and they tell the truth about how they really feel about their own crimes when talking about someone else. Let's continue.
Thanks.
With Mika's father.
Now, this is the reason why, one of the main reasons why I wanted to play this, because if people don't know, Mika's father was a high-ranking person in government. These people aren't here because of their talent. Joe Scarborough was an elected congressman. That's why they trust him to be on TV. Daddy was like this with Henry Kissinger, and they're about to talk about that. Like these people, Anderson Cooper, he's part of a oligarch. He's an heir to a mega fortune. That guy, his last name really is not Cooper. It's the name of that dynasty. He just uses Cooper, so you don't know that. So let's continue. These people are unreal. Let's listen to the connection though that her father has that they are proud about.
So, Joe, he did have a complicated relationship with Mika's dad. He and Zbigniew Brzezinski really were the two towering foreign policy intellectuals of their time. And a striking thing was that at the funeral of Zbigniew Brzezinski, John Hamre, the head of a think tank called the Center for Strategic and International Studies that Kissinger had been very close to, read a letter from Henry Kissinger in which he expressed deep regret that he'd never really said all the things of admiring and praiseworthy of Zbig that he had wanted to in his lifetime. It was a moment that I think everybody in the audience has never forgotten. Showed to me how complicated a person Kissinger was. He was struggling, striving as a young immigrant to make it in foreign policy with the patronage of the Rockefellers, other prominent people in America. He was a genuinely brilliant person who in his first book set forth the way he looked at the world. It was about stability. His model was the Congress of Vienna, if viewers can remember that, in 1815, which
so understand, Nick, the guy that's talking, that's David Ignatius. So when we are reading history today and we're reading news clippings today, do you ever ask yourself, can we believe this shit? Because listen, David Ignatius is a top reporter, Nick. His words will be read 100 years from now for people who will be reading a newspaper. And what he's saying about Henry Kissinger is an absolute lie, Nick. So how are we now to this is anytime I encounter this dynamic, I go, there's no way I can believe this shit that I'm being told in these books about the United. There's no way. Look what they're saying about this guy. Go ahead.
Dude, this is so deranged. It's like, bro, I'm literally in shambles here. I'm glad I saw I had to run around the house a little bit. That's why I got the camera off. But I'm like in shambles here because these same people attacked Donald Trump for not even saying nice things about like Putin in North Korea, but he would humanize them. He's like, as a leader, this guy is smart. Like that, I remember that's Morning Joe in particular in a news cycle freaked out when he said that Kim Jong-il of North Korea, and he said that Xi Jinping was smart, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is Donald Trump admiring and praising tyrants." And I'm sorry if I sound like a fucking broken horse here, but if you think that any of the people I just named has a kill count anywhere near this guy, you are delusional. None of these people had the moral high ground over. Henry Kissinger had the moral high ground over no one alive, but they're praising him. They are guilty of the same thing they accused Trump of. What did I just say? The same way they describe their enemies, use that to describe what they are doing. Donald Trump is an evil, tyrannical motherfucker because he had nice things to say about Xi Jinping. Meanwhile, they have nice things to say about Henry Kissinger. Their accusations are confessions. They are morally bankrupt, and they know it because they say nice things about Kissinger. But let's continue.
This
is really shocking.
Such a complicated person.
Yeah. He really was. And it is a shame Mike Barnicle's not with us today because, of course, Mike covered the Congress of Vienna in 1815 for the Boston Globe. But we'll talk to Mike about that tomorrow. I'm sorry, Ann, it's just a joke. But we're going to talk much more, Mika, about Henry Kissinger's legacy. I will just say really quickly, so your father and Dr. Kissinger, about as extreme rivals as you could be while working together. Just read Dr. Brzezinski's diaries to see that. And yet he very
I'm sorry. I don't have anything smart to say. Like, I'm just raging.
John Henry said when hearing of the news, and wrote a beautiful letter to your mother and your family. But we'll be talking about that legacy ahead. I'm sure you have thoughts.
Well, no, I just think I sort of, in my mind, celebrate the moments when they would get together on stage or around a table and they would spar in a joyful way over issues. Because Willie, they both.
No, you're not going to talk about anything he did. Like,
I was just about to say that.
I'm sorry, CJ. I didn't mean to undercut you.
No, go ahead.
I am literally losing my mind listening to this. Like, media rank these people as a way more reliable. And in one of the categories, if you look at the article, one of the reasons why they rank us low, they said we do low effort reporting. Meanwhile, Morning Joe and all the establishment newspaper does quote unquote high level reporting. That's what it said in the article. And they rank Morning Joe one of the highest reliable shows. They think this is high level, high effort reporting. I fucking did research for you guys, found graphics. I mean, I know his crimes, but I don't know the exact numbers, motherfucker. I had to do research for my segment, had to find numbers, make sure you guys know the exact count. I'm not guessing. Like, I had research to do in my segment. Meanwhile, they're like, nigga, they had freezing and friendly rivalry with your dad. He was on the magazine cover. This is the lowest fucking effort garbage, and you get this regularly on TV. And I'm not really mad but it's just very offensive that media says that this is high effort, and people think that RBN and any independent media is low effort when we work way harder. We are way smarter. We are way more impactful in educational new program than they would ever wish to be. But go ahead, CJ. This is fucking this is unbelievable.
But what I wanted to also say is that, like, this we're hearing them talk about their government. This is not for us. In the way that they're speaking, my dad, he did this, and they had all these fights, and your dad this and this, and he knew this person and that. You see how this government, like, it's not ours, bro. This is not for us.
That's another great point, CJ.
Yeah, they're talking about this government like this is a family business that is kind of passed down and just being
in our face.
Yes, it's so it's off-putting to me. It's very off-putting.
How can anyone, and liberals do this all the time because Trump bastardized the term, when people say that the deep state is a conspiracy theory, like that's what, like, especially like Trump made it way more fashionable to hate it because they bastardized it. But like, how can you see people just being chummy on TV talking about family, their friends? You see like former State Department officials like Jen Psaki have a TV show on there. How can you just see this right in front of your face? You can't even call it a conspiracy theory because it's not really a conspiracy. Yeah. They openly doing it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But go ahead, let's continue, CJ.
Facts.
Both had a deep appreciation for the complexity of global issues like the ones we're facing today in Ukraine and trying to bring together NATO, and also, of course, the war in the Middle East, which is our top story this morning. Willie?
It is. And by the way, Mike Barnacle is, in fact, here today. He's warming up in the bullpen, Joe. And
all right. Yeah, they do have another segment, but that was crazy. But go ahead, Nick. You were gonna
my last take on this is an absolute crime on journalism. You can't even call this journalism because imagine doing a segment on Henry Kissinger without saying the word Vietnam one time. Can you imagine thinking you're a journalist, thinking that you're an intelligent political commentator, and you're doing a segment without Kissinger, without even saying the word Vietnam, without even saying Cambodia? There's no words in the language, at least I'm versed enough to say, to describe how deeply unserious these people are. Like, if you want to bring up the magazine covers and shit, I guess you could, but that's like side fucking comment after you talk about the Vietnam, Cambodia shit. You know what I mean? There's a Port of Pinochet and all the other shit. But go ahead, CJ. I passed you for our last segment.
Yeah, so let's get to our last, and it's not that long, but I do want to cover this article because this is a pretty good article that Margaret Kimberley wrote, and we didn't necessarily have to cover it with her here. That's why it wasn't the forefront because it's just a pretty good article, and we cover a lot of her articles anyway. But let's get to this here. Do I have it up? No, let me go back. All right, so this article here, so she writes this article here. It's entitled "Black Media Leaders Do the Democrats Dirty Work," and the graphic that's used for this article is Simone Sanders. And lately she's been calling for basically for everybody to fall in line, and that's kind of, I get the feeling that's kind of what spurred this article, or the idea from the article for this article by Margaret Kimberley. Now, I just cut out, instead of reading the whole article, I just cut out 5 paragraphs, and I'll just read the 5 paragraphs. I'll put the link of the article in the description box if you want to read the whole thing. But let's just read a little bit, Nick, because you and I talk about this all the time. We've done several segments. We call it, in this case, she's calling it Black Misleadership, but we normally would call this a Negro servant segment or something like that. But we're going to go with Black Misleadership right now. Let me just read the first paragraph. The Black Misleadership class cast a very wide net. This group is not just composed of elected officials and organization heads. The misleaders have a media team too, and they have already begun the process of herding Black voters into the Democratic Party wing of the duopoly, getting them to cast ballots for Joe Biden without any question or complaint. I couldn't have written that any better. The media misleaders are getting an early start on the 2024 presidential campaign season. Despite the fact that Biden has no competition from any Democrat, and the party has already said that there will be no debates even if a competitor appears, Biden's weak approval rating and poor showing in the polls vis-a-vis Donald Trump has them running scared. They don't know if Trump's indictment will prevent him from running, or if Republican voters will choose him regardless of his legal complications. Now, this is where she really gets into some of the critique here. What are the misleaders to do under this circumstance, Nick? What our leaders should do? Let me answer that. What our leaders should do, if you're a Black leader, or if you're a Black person who is saying, I believe the Black community should go this way. I think RBN is that, if you want to consider us a leader. And then what would a Black misleader say? Now, what will we say to Joe Biden's poor numbers, or voting for Joe Biden, or this upcoming election? Is the stuff we've already been saying. Whoever wins doesn't matter. We're going to be in the community, helping the community regardless. Whoever wins doesn't matter. Don't vote blue or red. Take your vote and put it somewhere where you think it matters. Stop donating to these parties and donate to mutual aid organizations to help people directly. That's what leaders would say. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Just quickly interjecting, most workers in this country pay to vote. If you're an hourly worker, hell, even if you think you're slick and taking time off, you pay for time off, right? That's a benefit that has a value. That's our contribution. And people like Ryan Grimm and many professional managerial class people who don't understand it, they're like, why not just vote then? Not only is it counterproductive to vote, but you are paying to vote. Why the hell would you pay to vote to vote for Jim Crow Joe? Like, imagine if this is what I went through before. Imagine if you're like an hourly worker and you decide to take PTO so you can go vote. That you're not getting paid. Or if you do get paid time off, you take paid time off. You that's a value you are taking. That's PTO that could have went to vacation.
Yep.
Or hell, if you don't have paid time off, you're not getting paid hourly to go vote. Either way, I've been in a position where I had no pay time off, where I went and voted, and instead of making money, I would never advise anyone to do that. Imagine you have family, but instead of having money and making money to feed your children, you stand in line for 2 hours. You made $15 now. You don't got $30 now. Can you pay to vote for Jim Crow Joe? Is that really worthwhile? And I phrase it this way, because don't let people like Ryan Grimm and other progressives say stuff. Why not just spend your time and vote? Why? Come on, man. This is voting. Not that big of a deal. No, yes, it is. If you're not voting to advance your agenda, you're wasting your time. Paying for that may be worth it if you're advancing your agenda at least. But imagine paying for voting for someone against your agenda. That's absurd. That's our argument. Go ahead, CJ.
Absurd. Yeah, and I continue a couple of more paragraphs here, and we're just almost done here, and then we'll discuss a little bit. But what are the misleaders to do under the circumstance? And we describe what we would do. They have to begin the indoctrination process in earnest. This year, their work is especially important in the light of Biden's role as an accessory to Israel killing of more than 20,000 people in Gaza. And this is why I wanted to make sure I covered this, Nick, is that understand, Nick, if Biden cannot win with the black vote, who are they leaning on the most to make sure Joe Biden get elected? If it's the black vote, isn't the black leadership class the top priority for getting out the word, Nick? That's who has the top priority for getting out the word for this person.
They want to disenfranchise as many people as possible instead of having a horse race where you try to win as many people votes as possible. Both parties are trying to turn off as many people as possible, and whoever win the race to the bottom, I guess, is in charge. So the only people who really matter to them are suburban white women and other capitalists. Those are the only interests that matter. And you had, I think it was Chuck Schumer who said it. He for every every two working class people we lose, every one person working class we lose, we get 2 suburban people. It's an active strategy. They don't care about the poor. Let's completely get the poor out of politics in general. No one in the duopoly advocate for them. So if you're poor and you vote for us, good job, dumbass. But if you guys are voting third parties that we rigged the system for, as long as we win, it don't matter if we win with a 20% voter turnout. The only thing that matters is if we win, right? That's their ideology. They don't care if we have low voter turnout. They don't care that Congress has around an 18% approval rating and has for years.
That's ridiculous.
You think they keep them up at night, CJ, fam? You think Nancy Pelosi is like, oh, we got 19% approval? No, she's like, nigga, they elect me every year, bro. Every year. I hope you guys understand my point, but go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and I continue. I'm going to read this again because it's just a point that it just got to hit home. This year, their work is especially important in light of Biden's role as an accessory to Israel killing of more than 20,000 people. Imagine, Nick, it has to be awful to be a coon, to be a Negro servant, knowing that
that's a good quote out of context. Out of context.
I just said it back to myself, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean
but it has to do something to you to know that you would be the person that would sell out your ancestors if this was the times of slavery times. You would be the one, because you are in charge of selling out the Palestinian people and the people who are going to the genocide in order to get more black people to vote for them. So you're not only selling out the Palestinians, I almost take it as you're selling out your ancestors, because you're also trying to convince other black people to sell out people who are under a genocide, which to me is a slap in the face to our ancestors. So you are, in my opinion, doing that. It's just a despicable. I couldn't do it, Nick. I couldn't do what Simone Sanders does. I could not do that without being heavily drunk, like heavily like intoxicated. It's no way that I could do that.
I think I would die a young death. I think that shit is toxic for your soul. I don't have a scientific explanation for that. But if there are people who man, I can't wait to motherfucker sell out. But if you're I couldn't do this shit, like people who for example, get on YouTube and say stuff they don't believe. Imagine you guys know how many subscribers we would have if we was black Republicans. If we were revolutionary blackout and we were telling you guys, this is why you should vote for Trump. Trump has a black agenda. You know how great Trump would be. Nigga, we'll have 500,000 subscribers if we did that shit. But what's the point? You know what I mean? That's how I feel. I don't even understand the point. If I'm going to say some shit that I don't believe for money, I get back in sales. It makes no sense to do this. Don't make no sense to be in politics. If you want to do that, that's my opinion. Go ahead, CJ.
It's funny. That's the reason I got out of sales. It was hard for me because it was hard for me to say stuff that wasn't true, and I told them I will always be getting written up and shit like that. So, but yeah, let me finish this. Only one paragraph left to go here. Where I leave? Oh, right here. The outrage felt by millions of people impacted Biden, whose approval rating is now only at 37%, an indication of peril for a sitting president. Not to worry, though, Biden has help from black pundits like Roland Martin, who, in response to Arab Americans declaring opposition to the man who is killing their people, raised the Trump specter right on cue. And this is a quote from Roland Martin, which we never cover because his target audience is a lot older. But he says a lot of a lot of Negro.
If that's the guy I think it is, he's one of the worst.
Yeah, he is terrible.
They all the same people. They all the same people. Yeah. Even if you're not talking about the guy I'm thinking about, I promise you they're the same. But anyway, go ahead.
Here's a quote from Roland. He says,
"Actually, click that account so I can see. If I see, I'm curious. Yeah. That is the guy I was thinking of. Go ahead, CJ. You're right. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. I was curious.
So this is the quote. Well, and he says, Saeed and Mehdi Hassan, I totally get it. I guess Mehdi Hassan was saying something about what's happening, like what Joe Biden is doing is going to only hurt him at the voting, at the voting ballot, at the ballot box. That's what they were saying. And then Roland Martin responds to them with this. Well, Hassan, I totally get it, but Trump has made clear his Muslim ban goes into effect on day one, and he will deport all Palestinians and immigrants who support them. His first time will look like recess compared to the second one. That's Roland Martin. Go ahead.
For one, why do they even believe Trump who's a liar? You gotta remember, Trump said a lot of shit that he didn't actually fucking do. And can he even legally do this? There's so many things. There's so many reasons why Trump couldn't get accomplished by what he wanted to, because of the way our government is structured, because the separation of powers and all that stuff. So when they do these fear-mongering nonsense, it's a joke, because whenever there's a Republican president, they sell this idea they are all powerful and they can do whatever they want. But then whenever Joe Biden, the Democrat, is president, oh my God, we're helpless. Nothing we can do. We want to help you, but we can't do it. Hey, you guys really believe this? And one last thing I'm going to say on this point, and on the point on how the duopoly works together, right? The duopoly works together because Republicans are always there to help bail out Democrats and vice versa. So right now, Republicans see Joe Biden losing a ton of Arab support. They losing the young vote. So what do Republicans do? They go out and say, let's ban all Arabs. Let's ban all Muslims. You guys see how this is a fucking balancing act? And I know this my entire life. Whenever Democrats really fuck up, I remember Barack Obama, there was a generation of young people leaving the Democratic Party. And then what happened? Trump. Also, we're gonna build a wall. They always do this. They always purposely escalate so they can have a perfect balancing act. Because to be honest, if you look at what Trump has been saying, and we look at what Republicans have been saying on Palestine, it is batshit crazy. But they have to be batshit crazy to try to scare people back to the Democratic Party. It's a very complicated balancing act. I really hope I'm doing a good job explaining. You know what I mean? Like, whenever the Democrats fuck up, the Republicans have to say something crazy to help the Democrats. Whenever and vice versa, essentially. I'll wrap it. I think you guys get it.
No, that's true, because you remember the famous quote that we've always talked about from Joe Biden. I want a healthy Republican Party. Something to that effect. Exactly. Something like, I want a healthy Republican Party. And to your point, I think what you're saying, to put it in basic terms, is that when the other party sees the other party, the opposite party, kind of struggling, they go, I need to struggle too, so that I don't appear way better than the opposite side. This tells you it's a dance. On that point, it's a dance. Go ahead.
On that point, you guys know why the Republicans start going super hard on LGBTQ issues again? Like Trump ran. Remember when Trump ran on being the most pro LGBTQ president of all time? What the fuck happened? What happened? Because Democrats needed the help. The Republicans for a while, like, all right, whatever, and then fucking get the LGBT whatever issues over. And then all of a sudden, Democrats had a horrible record of Barack Obama to defend. They had Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden as leadership, Nancy Pelosi as leadership, so they had to get Democrats a bone. And all of a sudden, they started engaging in anti-trans, unserious bullshit. And remember, we had like the MAGA communists, we had right-wing populists who thought we was wrong. They were like, we said that none of that culture warrior shit is appealing to the working class. And what happened? Republicans literally got blasted in 2022 and 2023. And there was a poll that I reported on that showed that the anti-woke shit that Republicans did backfired. Like there were people who, even conservatives, are like, you guys are insulting my intelligence. So remember, Arbin was right. And the MAGA communists was wrong, because the MAGA communists believed that you had to engage in culture war to win over the workers. And the polls and all the data showed that was wrong. When they did it, they lost support. Trump is still unpopular. He most likely to beat Biden, but that doesn't mean he's popular. He's still disliked by the American people. So like we said before, engaging that shit will just turn off people who care mostly about their material needs. So Republicans did that instead of, imagine an alternate scenario where Republicans didn't do anything to support workers, but that was the main thing they leaned into, were pretending they care about workers. Imagine if Republicans leaned into pretending they care about ending the wars, but they don't. Instead, they engage in the culture war to give Democrats a chance. I know that was a long point to make, but I feel like I had to be
it's the you know what I mean? It's to level out, to ensure that we keep this a lesser of two evil game, because we can't, if you don't make this a lesser of two evil game, then that throws off this whole uniparty. But back to go ahead.
This is really quick, but couldn't they wait to repeal Roe versus Wade after 2024? There's a point I made before. Wouldn't it be a better strategy? Because the Supreme Court justices is not changing. You're going to have the same amount of Supreme Court justices after 2024 than before. So a good strategy would be to wait till after 2024, wait till a Republican wins, and then overturn Roe v. Wade. But notice the Republicans did it during the election year when polls showed that Roe v. Wade was popular. Why the fuck would you do that unless you want to help the Democrats? And it did in the midterms. But go ahead, CJ.
That is a fantastic point. But I'll continue with the article. And it finishes with talking about Roland Martin. It says, notice that Martin makes only a cursory attempt to acknowledge the justifiable anger in the Arab American community. He claims to totally get it. They do this all the time, Nick, where you go, man, I'm struggling this. You list a whole bunch of things. You talk for 10 minutes, and then they go, I totally get it. You know what this is? I totally get it. And then they start talking about how they don't get it. You know what this is, Nick? This is literally a sales tactic. And you may have heard this in a different version. This is literally a sales tactic where it's essentially saying you never take no for an answer. So
Absolutely.
what do you
That's one of my
do
favorite
when
techniques.
they go, oh, well, I don't have any money? You go, I totally get what you mean. I'm struggling too. And then you combat that. You combat that obstacle. This is a sales tactic. I taught this shit to many salespeople. Go ahead.
No, perfect example. Go ahead, CJ. I don't want to. I don't want to be.
No. I was done. Just to say, like, so understand. Propaganda is selling. So a lot of propaganda uses a lot of selling techniques that you see in the sales industry. And when I see it, I like to point it out, and I see it here. And when they say he claims to totally get it, but then brings up Trump, and thereby proves that he is dismissing the empathy, I should say, towards Biden. Roland Martin is joined by Simone Sanders Townsend, a former aide to Vice President Kamala Harris, who predictably walked into a gig on MSNBC after leaving her political position. I must ask before I read this last paragraph, you notice, Nick, why is it such a hot job to go on media after working for the White House? Why is that such a normal thing? We saw it with Pierre Jean-Pierre. You know she's gonna go back to the media. We see it with Psaki. We see it with Simone Sanders. We see it with Nicole Harris. Nicole Wallace. We see it with Joe Scarborough. Why is that? Because the ruling class only trusts people who have proven they're willing to sell out in these spaces, and these people who have been in government have proven that, and that's why they're willing to put them in these media mouthpiece spaces. Yeah. One last paragraph here. MSNBC is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, and Simone Sanders runs with the Democratic playbook by frightening voters who want to vote for a third-party candidate. The graphic in a recent program reads, why voting for third-party candidates could be a triumph for Trump in disguise. And like I said, go read this entire article. And we actually covered that video, and I can't remember what segment. We covered the video they're talking about. Case Study QB clipped this actual segment that she's speaking about in this article, Nick. And it's pretty despicable when I see these black people doing this. But go ahead, Nick. It sounds like you want to try.
Yeah, this is something I take on. It's one of our most important battles, is calling out the misleaders in our community. Like, you gotta know, we call out everyone, but we're not leaving the people that is selling out our community untouched. In fact, that's my number one focus. The first article I ever wrote in Substack was a scathing takedown of black liberalism. And you gotta know, Black Agenda Report focused on this, and I cannot wait, especially until next year, when we continue to take downs of these sellouts. Like, we exposed Nina Turner, we exposed Cori Bush, all these people who pretend to be pro-black, but they supporting Nazis in Ukraine, for example. Like, we have zero tolerance for it. Zero tolerance. I don't know if you guys know, Rome talked about it on the show. Like, Rome and Nina Turner had a good relationship at one point. Because just like me and Rome was on the Bernie campaign. He met Nina, they were friends. But you guys know, Rome and RB, we didn't let the fact that we had previous contact with Nina stop us from calling her out when she started doing some openly sellout shit. You know what I mean? Supporting the Ukraine war, for example, endorsing Jim Crow Joe. And honestly, it's not very fair, and I don't agree with it in general. But there's a reason why we got to go after these people, because it's most effective when people in their own community hold their sellout accountable, right? Because there's always a slippery dodge that people like Nina Turner can use. You saw that Nina used it against Jimmy Dore. Oh, you called me out. You must be anti-black. You got to notice how Nina used that against Jimmy.
Yeah.
Cori Bush used it against her critics. So the bullshit, but you know how that's why they can't engage with us. Because they can't say that, oh, RBN, you guys only criticize them because you're anti-black. You don't like Eric Adams because you're anti-black. That's what Eric Adams say all the time, guys. Like, Eric Adams, you say the reason why he get hard media coverage is because he was black. I don't know if you saw that, CJ. He said it all the time.
Yeah, he says it all the time.
That's what they do. They can't use that shit against us. But most importantly, important for us to hold ourselves accountable, because they're the number one threat to our communities. My last thought of the stream, there was a giant boom of black mayors over the last few years. You have black mayors in the largest cities in America, and there was black capitalists who celebrated this fact. You want to know what happened ever since the takeover of big black mayors on these cities? The expansion of the police state. Yeah, the police state expand in these cities. Quentin Lucas in my city is another example. Eric Adams, Keisha Lance Bottom in Atlanta. There's all these names and not all of them necessarily important to remember, but in the last few years, if you didn't know, there was a wave of black mayors. I did a hotspot video about this a long time ago. Ever since black mayors took over the biggest cities in America, black wealth has fallen. Police have gotten bigger. Black homelessness increased. But tell me more about why we should be so worried about Marjorie Taylor Greene. You gotta know that I don't go after Marjorie Taylor Greene because Marjorie Taylor Greene don't fucking govern me. Nigga, we got Quentin Lucas, the Black Congressional Caucus. You got black misleadership classes in Atlanta, in New York, and California that is destroying our lives, and y'all fucking worry about Marjorie Taylor Greene? I'm not saying she's not good. I'm not saying she's not a threat in any way, but she's way less important than Keisha Lance Bottoms, Quentin Lucas, and Eric Adams. Anyway, that's my last thoughts. CJ, anything else you want to share before we wrap?
No. I was looking for did real Nico make a hotspot on Elon Musk or something like that?
Yeah, he did.
Somebody was just talking to me about it, which generally is about, just so I know. He said it's pretty good. That's why I was like, what?
Yeah, he did a hotspot about Elon free speech. It's a 5-minute video. It's pretty. I didn't get a chance to check it out yet, but Nico's all.
I mean, we can do it. We can save it if you want as a segment, or we can play it. I guess we can play it.
Do you want to save it as an outro video? We can do it as an outro.
Yeah. Let's do that. I can do it as an outro video. Yeah, we'll do it as an outro videos.
Yeah, I'll post it in the chat. I'll read the last
few super chats and then I'll put it up for you. Yeah, I'll put it up.
Let me check. Let me post this in the chat so you, because it'd be good. Because I haven't seen the video yet either. Because I just finished my hotspot that should be coming out any moment now, guys. Any moment. So anyway, I can't wait to see that. Let me. I'm trying to find the super chat. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we're gonna read some super chats. I see the link here. We'll get to the super chats.
Thank you for the $2 unemployed scholar. Read the Burning Spear article regarding the CPUSA. They probably have more information regarding what you guys are talking about. Once again, if it's true that they are, and I'm careful because if you have a platform, you can't just smear people. So I'm being careful. I didn't look into it. So if it's true that they are a Democrat operative, that's deeply embarrassing. I don't know why anyone would even be associated with them. You know what I mean? But we see. I don't know that much about them. I know you guys are chomping at the bit for us to diss them or something, but I just don't know that much about them. I would. I'm not trying to dodge. I'm not trying to dodge. If I knew more about them, I would tell you guys how I feel. You guys know I am.
About who? About who?
About the CPUSA. About CPUSA.
Oh, yeah. I just don't know enough.
Yeah, I wish I did. I just hear rumors. Thank you for $20, Mike. Seiger had good things to say. Oh, Jesus Christ! Come on, please tell me you fucking with me. No, Seiger had good things to say about Kissinger. I don't think he's not even trying anymore. I seen
he's from the Hudson Institute though. He's from the Hudson Institute.
Remember when you used to at least try though? Remember when you used to try to be a populist?
He tried
to be anti-war. There was a clip I saw that wasn't worth doing a segment on, where he was like demonizing anti-peace protesters. Like, why are you guys even here? He was like, they must be disruptors. Why would anyone care about war? Like, what? He made a passionate plea against peace activists. People were showing up to protest. They're like, so you're not even trying to fill that lane that you pretended that you
not at all.
Again. That I don't watch the show, so I don't have a good grasp of everything he says. But from what I see, the illusion is not even there anymore. Speaking of Jimmy, he left the super chat earlier. He roasted him again. I love that Jimmy went like completely gloves off on them. Like recently, I think the Ukraine thing really did it. Like he's been going after Seiger pretty hard. Everyone should. He's a fraud. Thank you for $5, ZZ. Social democracy is weak. I told you guys, I don't want to belabor the point. You guys know, I said I don't mind people who don't align with me on politics all the time. Like there are people who watch us who are conservative, who don't agree with us, but I respect them. I'm glad that we have something to teach them. So it's not you being conservative that made me look down on you. It's people who say stuff that they don't believe. Like when I see Seiger, when I see Crystal, when I see Cal, like there's a difference in a disagreement. You guys are saying stuff you don't believe for money. Like I find that, like, that's so reprehensible to me. Like that's why I have no respect for those people. And I don't think it's just a disagreement with Cyber. He's a calculated business person making moves. You know what I mean?
Hey, Nick, remember when Crystal Ball and her husband, Kyle Ball, had Bree on, and they literally had the audacity to be arguing that Joe Biden is great. I wonder how they're feeling now about this Palestinian thing. Are they going to go back to pushing Joe Biden the same way, saying that, what do you mean? Why aren't you giving him credit? Remember that debate where they were whining that we weren't giving him credit for all the crumbs that he was trying to do? That aged terribly. Like
that aged as bad as we knew it would. It aged as bad as we knew it would.
Yeah.
Like I remember telling you guys don't think this shit's not gonna be replayed for years. Like anyway, let's move on. Here's another great critique. For $5, social democracy is weak because workers don't have the means of production. Therefore, they are susceptible to takeover by the rich. By the rich are being bought out. Absolutely. You can literally do an hour live stream. I remember we had Q Anthony and Mene on. We talked about it before. I talked about it with Midwestern Marks. And the reason why we're having a conversation about, because it's confusing. Like, you know what I mean? When you hear what social democrats say, when they say they want free healthcare, yeah, these motherfuckers are based. And I went through the same thing. That's why I was part of the Bernie campaign. It's very confusing. But then when you have a Marxist analysis, when you really study their strategy, now that I know it, I'm like, dude, I can't believe I couldn't see it. Like, one of the things, like, once you see the flaws of social democracy, you can't unsee it. I will acknowledge, and I don't know how many people will do it, I will acknowledge that it's a very appealing ideology. Like, I can see why people get drawn to it. I can see why people want it to be a replacement over neoliberal capitalism. But there are serious flaws in it as an approach of challenging power. But I don't want to beat the point up. I think we explained that many times as they did as well. Last one for DC. Thank you for all the super chats today. This is in response to what we were talking about, the devil's bargain. I can tell LLC and companies aren't even pushing to expand social welfare, which you can make an argument. I would love. It'd be interesting to see me debate with a social democrat one day, because you can make an argument if you are a more intelligent social democrat that AOC and Bernie are failures. You know what I mean? You can kind of distance. That's what I would do. I would distance myself from them. But AOC and Bernie explains why social democrats are ineffective, because social democrats inherently make a bargain with capitalism in order for social change. They are social democrats. They call themselves democrat socialists because they bought into the idea that socialism is not democratic. That's capitalist brainwashing. It's capitalist realism, the idea that we will always be stuck with capitalism. So you have to accept its flaws. You have to believe the flaws that capitalists say about other ideologies that are not true. Marxism and socialism is the most democratic operations we have. That's when we control the means of production. But social democrats, they don't even understand that point. That's why they decided to team up with Biden and team up with capitalists in order to get fucking crumbs that they are not even getting. Which DC
they're not even getting.
They're not even getting. Anyway, shut up now. Anyway, thank you guys for our super chat. I see no one for our friend Sam, so I'll read it. Thank you for the 199. I get genocide is bad, but have you ever seen in our LRB? That was just serious argument. Anyway, we had a banger after banger this week. Do we have any guests tomorrow? I think I'm going to take tomorrow if we do not.
No, I was just about to say, I'm going to take tomorrow off, Nick, but we're going to be back at it, man. We're going to work over the weekend to confirm. What I want to try to do, Nick, and you tell me if this is too much, I want to try to have 4 guests a week, whether it's 2, whether it's spread out over 4 days, or whether it's 2 interviews for 2 days out of the week. However we do it, I would love to do 4 interviews because it just feels like having other opinions besides ours will propel more radicalism, because it feels like our community knows us. So when we bring in those voices, they're like, wow, to hear Margaret Kimberley say the same thing. It just kind of like backing us up, kind of like co-signing is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Love bringing them on.
Most of our audience, a lot of our audience are working class people. So a lot of people catch the replay. So we got a lot of bangers for you guys to catch up on. Like if someone just watched this live stream live at work, you missed the last one. That's a lot of our views come from people who behind on the library. So you guys get a day or so to catch up. We have Sabby and JB, they got programming coming on very soon as well. We always got content for you guys, clips and all that stuff. So we give you some time to catch up on the library. Take a day off. We had a very good week. So CJ, I'll pass to you. I'll see you guys around.
Yeah. All right, Nick.
Make sure you guys keep an eye out for the hotspot video. It should be dropping maybe in the next hour or so. So it's my one about Henry Kissinger. I think it'll be very fun to make.
Oh, that's gonna blow up. That's gonna blow up, Nick. That's gonna blow up.
Anyway, I see you guys.
All right. So again, we're gonna end with this video. This is a video on Elon Musk. It's a pretty good video. It's 5 minutes long. I was watching a little bit in the background. So it's 5 minutes long, but it's a pretty good video. It's talking about Elon Musk, his visit to Israel, and the upcoming censorship that pro-Palestinian people will start to begin to receive. So this is a pretty base video. Yeah, let's play it. Oh, one other thing, I do have this tab. I'm closing my tabs in the back, but I did see I still have this tab up. So let me make sure I share with all of you. This is our website. So make sure you check it out. In particular, our merchandise. If you're looking for some of the merchandise, you see Nick wear the red RBN logo sweater earlier this week. I think on our episode on Tuesday, he wore it. If you want to check it out, how it looks in person. But if you go to our website, you can become a member. You can join our list. You can see our latest clips. You can even see our clips of all of our footage that all of the RBN members at different Palestinian protests. You can check that out here. But like I said, when you click RBN merchandise, it takes you to our merch store where you could check out some of our merch. We have 11 designs. Those 11 designs you can get on tote bags, you can get on t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweater, long sleeves, hoodies. Our most popular is our logo, but we also have other ones. We have the NATO one. The second most popular is our NATO logo, our NATO, where it says NATO is a terrorist organization. That's our second most popular item. But then there's also these other ones. I'll pick up this one. This one is the lesser of two evils got us here. That's what got us here. And you see how it looks. The lesser of two evils is what got us here. This is another shirt I want to get. You can get it in yellow. I like the yellow. The pink looks good. This is the one I'm thinking of getting for my wife and or my daughters, because the pink, they would like this pink. And then the powder blue and the silver, I guess. You can also get it in white too, but I think I'm going to get it in yellow. Check it out. I'll put our website scrolling right there at the bottom. If you like what you see, please check it out. All right, now I'll get to the video, and let's play this video on the way out. Hit that like button. This is friend of the show, friend of the network, Nico House, this video on Elon Musk.
So Elon Musk goes full Zionist after he was dragged on his little leash around Israel by Netanyahu after being called anti-Semitic after some recent comments he made on Twitter. Now, we are going to talk about Elon's comments that he made while talking to Bibi after his little visit to Israel. But before we get into that, anybody want to tell me why a billionaire is going to Israel for diplomatic reasons to begin with? Is Elon Musk a president? Is Elon Musk an ambassador? Does bro even have a political science degree? The answer is no, no, and no. Elon is a tech billionaire who owns X and prides himself on allegedly being a free speech absolutist. And therein lies the problem. See, there have been a lot of Israel's lies being debunked on all social media, but especially, of course, on Twitter. And if you're Bibi Netanyahu, it's a little inconvenient to have all that truth just floating around when you're trying to justify a genocide. And we also know that Musk doesn't only own X, but is constantly calling out for attention by making tweets, giving the illusion of being insightful, like a 4-year-old who is looking for validation because he didn't get enough attention from his father. Now, because of his willingness to constantly interact on X, he has a lot of influence. And people are willing to echo things that Musk says because those impressions equal paychecks now. So Musk, like a good little billionaire puppet, hit a little move whenever Israel started pulling them strings. And his little remarks after that propaganda tour he went on should make everyone question this principled man that they had always thought Musk was. Example, Musk says that terms such as decolonization and from river to the sea will result in a suspension from X. He says that decolonization and from the river to the sea are euphemisms that necessarily imply genocide. I really hope I don't have to explain the irony of a white South African whose family became millionaires from exploiting an apartheid South Africa, saying that decolonization is necessarily genocidal. But this also implies that he thinks that the word colonization isn't inherently genocidal. And I feel like there are some indigenous Americans who might want to have a conversation with him about that. Up until literally October 7th, even the ADL, which is a Zionist group, never considered from river to the sea to be a genocidal statement or anti-Semitic statement. But Elon fans, y'all getting banned for saying words now on X? This is y'all free speech king? This is y'all king? And this motherfucker has the audacity to say kids need better education in Gaza because they were fed propaganda as children, and that's why they don't like Israel. First of all, Elon, where the fuck the kids gonna go to school at? Israel has destroyed everything. Schools, hospitals, homes, dog houses. But it's crazy to me that you can look at the sheer destruction of what's happening in Gaza or the destruction that's happening in the West Bank where there is no Hamas and be like, yeah, it's definitely propaganda that is making kids hate Israel. It isn't the fact that they're bulldozing their homes. It isn't the fact that they're stealing their land with impunity. It isn't the fact that kids are being kidnapped, thrown in jail, being tortured, having their fingers broken, and they aren't even being charged with a crime. Yeah, Elon, it's the propaganda. That's why the kids hate Israel, for sure. That's it. But what's even more disgusting, while he's on this little crusade of banning harmful speech and misinformation on X now, you know, Mr. Free Speech Elon, but what's even more wild is that he didn't have the balls to, one, challenge Netanyahu, or two, talk about the fact that they have been spreading misinformation all over Twitter. First it was 1,400, then it was 1,150, then it was 40 beheaded babies. Then it was only one dead infant, and it turned out Israel killed him. Then it was kids were getting cooked in ovens. Then it turns out, nope, they were just bombed by Israeli tanks. Israel has gotten caught lying over and over and over again without impunity. But all of a sudden, the first time Elon wants to finally hold someone accountable for misinformation, it's everyone else for telling the truth about Israel? I cannot believe y'all thought that the richest man in the world who made the majority of his money from government subsidies and Pentagon contracts was somehow supposed to be this savior, this free speech savior. Nah, I thought it was a pretty safe bet. The white South African apartheid